Is it going here? Just Dango, how you we doing, buddy? I'm good, guys. Can I ask you guys a question? Do you guys ever wake up in the morning and ask yourselves, why am I not playing Elden Ring? Every morning. He's locked in, chat. 2 bits, how we doing, buddy? You weren't a fan of Elden Ring, really? You weren't a fan of Elden Ring, really? Will I upload the interview on YouTube? I will. So, if you guys did not know, Riker did an interview yesterday. He asked a lot of really good questions, but I have a lot of follow-up questions to the questions that he asked. And I promised people that I would take questions from YouTube. Some of them were already kind of answered, but in fact, Rax, I'll give you all the answers. It's on our radar. No, I want to get inside the minds of the devs. I want to know their approach to things. I don't want to know Not gonna ask yes or no questions. When can we save builds? I think they already answered that. They said that they like the idea of an armory. They like the idea of an armory. And it just wasn't the top priority for them to get into the game, but maybe I can reiterate that it was the top question. Okay, let's not use the ats because that's stupid. Was it CP Max 205 or something? And then Sergeant Turtle 330. Every single one of these questions I already had on my list except this one. Are there questions related to endgame improvement? Yeah, so I guess I can walk you guys through my questions that I have so far. You would be shocked. I actually spent a lot of time on this. I'm trying to be as prepared as possible. I'm going to need to I'm going to need to clean this up and potentially grab more questions from you guys. Actually, let me change my mind. Let me do a little bit more work here, and then I'll ask you guys because it's not quite complete yet. So they talked about set items yesterday. They said that set items are a fan favorite. They said that there is, if you think about a character's power, it's a slice of pizza. A slice goes to skills and Paragon and uniques and aspects and the affixes and whatever. If sets come into the game, then it's going to take up a slice of the pizza. How much of the pizza should it take is what they were talking about. So one thing that they said is there's no point to implement set items if they're too weak. And I strongly agree here. Look at the super shitty sets. I love pizza. That's what I took it from as well. That's what I took from it as well. So, if you look at like last Epoch, for example, they release sets. Most of them are completely worthless. I actually just filter out set items in my loot filter. I just filter them out. A lot of them in Diablo 2. You find a lot of low level set items. They're useless. You just go into the Black Marsh. You get your, what's it called? Your stealth. Then you make your 2 spirit items. And we ain't got no time for any of these sets. But they also said Diablo 3 too strong, and I agree. So the thing that I wanted to ask them about is, if set items come into the game, where do they feel is the right amount of power and item slots taken? And I can give them 3 examples of sets that I think worked beautifully. So in Diablo 3, a good example of a set is maybe Captain Crimson's, Guilds, and Guardians. They barely take up any slots, and they have different use cases. So Guardians is for early game. Captain Crimson's is if you want cooldown. And Guilds is if you want damage. And another really good example, in my opinion, is Diablo 2's Tal Rasha set. And the reason why is it's an endgame godly set, but not game breaking. And 2 pieces are very rare, but not impossible to find: the amulet and the chest. The chest is super difficult, but the amulet is very accessible. This is my example of the 3 best sets I've ever seen in a game. Do you guys agree that these sets are well designed, don't break the game, and add some flavor to the game? Can you move away from turning D4 into D2 and D3 questions? DF, I got 4 pages of questions here. I got 4 pages. I'm asking questions about Diablo 4. The questions are about Diablo 4, but I will draw analogies to many other games. I even have a question about Diablo 4's specific unique ideas. I've put in a shitload of effort into this document, man. Trust me. I'm not talking about the other games, but we can bring up tons of analogies to other games. There was an interview yesterday from Riker. We're gonna talk about that. Okay, here's my question on rune words. They said yesterday that they like rune words and they see a future in D4. They initially had rune words coming in, but they didn't have time to finish them. But here's the problem. Here's the thing for me about rune words. Rune words, to me, again, is an iconic system. Iconic system of D2. But the announcement that they had for rune words wasn't rune words. It was like a prefix and a suffix, and it was like a totally new system with the same name. So my question is, when the team talks about the work that you've already done on rune words, is it an improvement, or is it an improvement or an expansion on the original RuneWord system, or is it something with a different direction? Because this is the thing that threw off the community the most when they initially announced this. They said RuneWords are coming to Diablo 4, and then they showed us what it looked like, and it wasn't RuneWords at all. It wasn't. So I want to know, it sounds like it may be coming sometime in the future. If it comes in the future, are you starting with kind of Diablo 2's base of that system and expanding upon it and changing it and making it work in the Diablo 4 universe? Or are you actually going to give us something different? The interview's in 1 hour exactly. On Riker's interview, they took 15 minutes answering each question. Yeah, I watched Riker's interview three times over. I watched it 3 times. I'm pretty. I would like to think. Hopefully this is true. I'd like to think I'm pretty prepared today. I watched it 3 times. That's why the title of this is CJ's questions in the beginning. I want to, and I messaged Blizzard. I said, I would like to continue some of the conversations that you guys had. The interview's in 1 hour, guys. 1 hour. They talked about all of these. They talked about all of these in Riker's interviews, guys. I know. I watched it 3 times. I know. I have a different question. Riker asked, are RuneWords coming in Diablo 4? And their answer was, they like RuneWords and they see a future in Diablo 4. That's not my question. My question is, when RuneWords come to Diablo 4, are they going to be RuneWords, or are they going to be something different? Because when they initially announced it, it was something different. That's why I want to talk about it, Karamon. That's why it's my first question. That's exactly why it's up here. They talked about aspirational and Pinnacle content like 3 different times. So yeah, both. It would be both. Okay, charms. Let's say last epoch, we get our so PoE D3 don't have them. D2 has them with no dedicated inventory. Last epoch has them with a dedicated inventory. Will they ever come to D4? If yes, would they have a dedicated inventory? I already have that as a question, Luna. When is Diablo coming to Diablo 4? If Joe is smart, he would be in the chat taking notes to prepare. So let me clarify this situation here, guys. Never actually like individually or one-on-one too much, but I have been talking to more Joe than Adam, but some Adam as well. I've been talking to them for a long time. Me, Joe, and Adam had a lengthy conversation about how great Elden Ring is and how all great all the Souls games are. By the way, I think both Joe and Adam beat every single Souls game. Bloodborne, all three of the Dark Souls, and Elden Ring. So they're gamers, right? I am not going into this interview, with a machine gun looking for blood, right? I'm not looking to embarrass them. I'm not looking to put, uneasy pressure on them. What I want to do is I would just like to get some answers for the public on the most pressing questions, right? I want to know what is in their minds and on the team's minds for the future of the game. So that way we can estimate what we are going to be getting out of Diablo 4. Honestly, I think this interview might have some impact for some people on whether they'd buy the expansion or not. Because if people like what they're hearing about the future of Diablo 4, maybe they will have more confidence in purchasing the expansion. You know what I mean? So this interview is not my personal opportunity to get answers to these questions. This interview is to go out in public with a bunch of lovely people like yourselves and ask them some deep questions and see so everyone else can hear all the answers. So I'm not going in here for looking for blood necessarily. You lost 10 million runes today? Can't you just go pick them up though? Maybe just some bruising. Any question regarding PvP? No. Let's put this in here. Could ask that. Give me a second here. Rob sent me a message and said, Rax, if you can squeeze these two questions and get them in. So let's try to ask them. Yeah. So, okay. Let's go up here for a second. Riker got 5 questions in. Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 questions that came directly from CJ's interview, follow-ups to questions that CJ asked. And then I have 2 other additional things, and then I have many, here's another 5 questions I really want to know this. A lot of people in the community say Blizzard never tests anything that they do. They just throw stuff into the game. We're the beta testers, da 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 da. And I think people deep down know that that is not true. So I would like to know, how does testing work for Blizzard? You have an idea for something. Oh, we're going to do the abattoir. Fine. You put together like the monsters and the layouts, and maybe you get it into like a testing phase. Then, like, what happens? What is the internal process for testing? Another question that I wanted to ask at some point, I can delete all of this. Another question I wanted to ask is Microsoft's impact. I don't really know, though, because the problem with this kind of a question, the impact on game development, here's the problem, though. I don't know if we're ever going to get an answer here, because if Microsoft negatively impacted their development, they would never say it, right? They would like, they're either going to say Microsoft is great, we love them, or that's not true and they're not going to answer it, right? I guess we could ask it a different way, though, that's not offensive. Maybe we could say the Microsoft takeover, and then I guess we could ask them, have they mostly been hands-on, helping you guys, providing resources, providing guidance, or are they very hands-off, letting you guys do your thing, they trust you, or is it kind of like a mixture? That see, there's two people. They already said the Microsoft impact is positive. They already said that Microsoft is hands off. Not even the internet can agree. Okay, hey CJ, can I call you? CJ is here. Wait a minute. Can I? Do you want to chat on Discord for a second? I watched your interview 3 times, by the way. Okay, you call me, CJ. You call me. Okay, CJ is here. Let me turn off the music, guys. Remind me to turn it on. CJ is Riker. Let me message him. This will also give me a good chance to test my Discord audio here. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Hey Ryan, how you doing?
Yo, can you get? Okay, he's got to be too low, right? I turned him way up. Can you give me another one here, CJ?
Check 1 2 testing 1 2.
How's the volume there, guys? Up, down, or perfect? Okay, I'm actually getting every answer. Okay, let's go up slightly more. Last try, one more time.
Check 1 2. It could also be maybe I'm a little on the low side.
How's that? Okay, we're good. Hey man, I watched your interview yesterday. I don't know, man. You have like a flow, like it. You've done this before. You have like a flow to the conversation that I don't think I'm gonna be able to match, man. I'm just rough around the edges. I'm just diving right in, man.
Now you're gonna have a different style, and I think it's gonna be really good that we're each gonna have like different kinds of interviews that are gonna get different kinds of answers. Like there were some questions that because we did like I kind of did what you're doing here. We're getting some questions from the audience, and I'm like, that's a Rax question. You guys can go ask that tomorrow. Where I know it's like it's a bit more granular, it's a bit more on point. So yeah, no, I think I'm excited to see what you because you also have Adam Jackson, right? They're bringing in they know what to expect from you. So they're bringing Adam Jackson to cover those really specific class talking points.
Oh God, I don't even want to know what that means, but um, yeah. So I watched your interview. I really liked it. Again, I added another page and a half of follow up questions to your questions. Your questions were good, but yeah, like I guess I guess with my questions, like listening to how you brought them up, I have some like very, very, I don't know, pointed questions. Like, how do you feel about this? Um, I guess two questions for you. How did you feel about the interview in general? And was there any really pressing thing that you wanted to get out of your interview that you didn't have time for that you want me to revisit today?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I got through maybe half of the questions. I was like triaging them as I was going through them. Um, just because I was happy with the interview overall. I recognized that I asked some big questions, especially up front, that necessitated very long answers, and that's something I need to think about going forward. Is being able to maybe pepper in smaller questions up front that can give smaller answers, just to get more in there. Like I would have loved to, have hours to talk with Joe
Yeah.
and get through everything, and also like ask those follow up questions and stuff. But I know the Microsoft one was something that was high up on the list. I don't know. Like I was hearing your concerns, and I had this. I was going through that same theory crafting of what can they answer, what are they going to answer. So yeah, possibly one way of framing it would be, what if anything has the deal with Microsoft allowed you guys to do now that you couldn't do before? Because obviously they're not going to crap talk Microsoft, but it's kind of one way to see if their day to day is being impacted at all by this kind of stuff.
Okay. Keep going. What else? What else would you have asked? This is good.
Oh, let's see. Um, One answer that would have been a big, I skipped it because it would have been another big answer. Would have been, what's like the most challenging part, or what has been the most challenging part to work on of D4 to date that can help give insight. Like I like to ask questions that give insight into their process, because sometimes they'll do something and we'll react to it and be like, it'll be obvious on our end, or it'll seem straightforward on our end, but it's because we don't understand the thinking that went into something. So I like to ask questions that make me understand what they're thinking. So sometimes things that seem simple and easy for us to do, like, well, this was easy, why don't you just do this? It's like, oh, actually that was really challenging to put together, which could also shed insight into, well, going forward, why don't they just do this? It's just a flipping a switch, right? It's like, well, actually, this and that.
I actually agree with you. So a lot of people, well, actually, not a lot of people. That's not the right way to phrase it. Some people think that when we have the opportunity, and this is like a rare thing, I don't think I've ever been able to speak to Blizzard freely, openly, and they're just like, throw whatever you got at us. And you can look at a snapshot of Diablo 4 at any point in time and say, I like this, I don't like this. Will you buff this build? Won't you buff this build? This balance is off, da 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 da. But that doesn't help me project how I think the game will be in the future. The thing that
Right.
will help me do that is, what do you guys think over there when you're in your chair? We can see all the Reddit
Yeah.
threads of what people think you think, but what I want to know is, what do you actually think? And then all of a sudden we can start to figure some things out that will actually, you know, happen in Diablo 4 rather than focusing on a snapshot in time.
That's a great way of framing it. Yeah. I also like to avoid any questions that are just basically thinly veiled suggestions, because we have our ways to pass our suggestions onto them, right? We have platforms. We can make a, like, you make a YouTube video with suggestions. The devs see that, they hear that. An interview is like, it's kind of like wasting time, basically passing along a suggestion when we know we can get that feedback to them.
Yeah. You don't know what, I watched your interview multiple times. I watched a little bit of your follow-up conversation as well. One of the first things that I was going to ask them, you actually touched this multiple times in different areas in your interview, but talking about kind of like the really end game, the aspirational content. I heard them say Lilith was mechanical mastery. It wasn't based on gear, and that it, I agree that most people thought that that wasn't fun, but I don't know if it wasn't fun because of the hitboxes of the waves or because it was just challenging. But then later on, they talked about, again, you asked them again about the aspirational or the pinnacle content. And you said, well, they can make players weaker, they can make monsters hit harder, they can have more health. But in general, for it to feel like an ARPG, the decisions that you make before you go into a fight should matter more than in the fight itself, because otherwise you're playing like a Souls-like game. But they did mention that when they do have aspirational or pinnacle content, if they properly label it to the community, then the backlash actually really isn't there as long as it's properly advertised. But I would say, like, again, my follow-up question to that whole idea there is, what about skill, though? Because the Uber Lilith was the moment in the game where I feel like I actually triumphed over a tremendous challenge, a peak ahead of me in my Diablo 4 journey that I finally overcame, that I didn't just win because I found a Shaco or I got a perfect roll. I actually had to learn some mechanics, play well, and win. I wanted to ask them, is there any plans for stuff like that in the future? It doesn't have to be AoE, one-shot, crazy hitbox, things like that, but it sounded to me like they were kind of moving away from that entirely, and that honestly makes me sad.
I think that's definitely worth asking, yeah, whether they're planning to add any skill-based endgame or pinnacle content. One question that I didn't have a chance to ask was, what is your philosophy towards adding new endgame activities to kind of get an idea of what kind of new stuff we can expect to come, or if they even say like, yeah, no, we're done. This kind of, we think we're in a good place now with Bit, and I don't think that's the case, but to try to see where their mind's at with regards to what more they're going to add.
Did you see the update from last Epoch a few days ago about their 1-year roadmap?
I wish I had a chance to. I'm definitely going to dive into that before the weekend. I've just been slammed.
Yeah. So is it a spoiler alert if I tell you a little bit about it right now?
Go ahead, please do.
So in every single quarter, they're making significant improvements to the end game. Like my title is like last Epoch update, and my thumbnail was endgame, endgame, endgame. There's this every quarter, endgame, 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 changing this, adding this new thing, da 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 da. And again, I'm not trying to ask like question, like put a gun to their head or whatever, but I don't know if it would be rude to draw an analogy to that and be like, we just saw last Epoch's update and it looks like there's a tidal wave of many endgame updates coming in their future roadmap, and it looks good. I mean, that makes me happy as a player, because like they talked about in your interview, there's a huge difference between what's fun to do one time and what's fun to do repeated times. And a lot of people rip through the campaign and do a couple of echoes. It's like, okay, then what? But I think these constant updates to endgame are gonna do well over there. And I want to ask them, is there ever going to be a roadmap for Diablo 4 that looks like that? Endgame, 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 every single time, endgame, endgame, endgame. But
yeah, one of my questions would have been, do you guys plan to do a roadmap?
Yeah. Give it to me straight, because let's be honest, you're the voice of reason, you're the sweet little angel, everyone loves you, and I'm like, like on the shoulders, and I'm like the devil with the pitchfork. Is it very rude if I ask a question like that?
Okay, so I
Give it
don't
to
know.
me
My
straight.
my mic might have cut up there for a moment, but I actually did want to ask if they're going to do a roadmap. I don't think they will, and I think the reason is they don't want to pigeonhole themselves. They might have even touched upon this in the past. I anticipate the answer to be that if they're not going to do a roadmap, it's because they don't want to pigeonhole themselves into a specific path, and then if something else comes up, right, and some other fire they have to put out, they got to rearrange the roadmap, and now they're going to piss people off because they have to push things off. I think that will be the reason they would not want to do a roadmap, but it was a question I did want to ask. I don't think it necessitates framing it in the context of another game. If you want to, you could, but odds are they probably haven't seen that video either. But I mean, roadmaps in general, I think is totally fair play to ask.
Okay, I'm going to ask it maybe in a quote unquote softer way. Okay, what else? What other pressing topics are we missing? I mean, I have 4 pages here. I don't think this is ever going to happen, but
I forgot if I managed to ask this, but I want to ask whether the scope and size of seasons we've seen in 2 and 3 is about what we can expect going forward. Also, whether the vision for what seasons are has changed since launch.
okay.
Without being able to find the question specifically, so I'm going to kind of ramble here the question, but basically we've seen in the past couple of seasons, there's the season launch, and then there's like maybe 1 or 2 things that happen during the season. It's either like the Abattoir of Zir or like a midwinter event, where there's like a couple points that happen throughout a season that I guess is intended to bring people back. I'm wondering, like, what is their intended cadence of, I guess, content rollout? Like, is what we have seen sort of what we can expect going forward, or do they plan on having more content beats throughout a season or fewer? Kind of what they're thinking there. Actually, I want to know what your thought is. What do you want to see in a season? Do you like everything happens on day 1 and then nothing changes for the rest of the season, or do you like to see some other little content drop, 2 weeks in, a month in, or what would you like as someone who plays these games a lot?
Well, let me tell you something, CJ, that happens to me a lot. I don't know if this happens to you, but one thing that I get spammed all the time on the internet is Rax's opinion doesn't reflect the community's opinion because he plays the game all day. So Rax doesn't speak for us, and whatever he says can be taken with a grain of salt and is not going to help the community. I hear this shit and I on every platform every single time. So what the mid-season events have been are fun little, very low time required, very low effort, cutie patootie things to get some cosmetics. That's what they have been. And I think that the majority of the people that play casually, which is, I understand, is 95% of the people that play the game, probably really like that. And that event probably kind of aligns with what they're looking for. So does a mid-season event need to change from their perspective? Maybe not. The thing for me about what has not drawn me to them is the events and mostly the rewards have not seemed very great. Like, for example, if I did the winter event and it let me transmog as a snowman, like I'm actually a snowman on my horse, I would have done that because I mean I can be a snowman. But what they currently have doesn't entice me to log in and complete the event. For me personally, and it's not because I just play in them. People say, oh, it's because Rax plays in them. I like events that are timed and have some kind of a little competition to them. It doesn't even have to take a lot of skill. It could be, I don't know, who finds the most Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer things in the snow for the event, and you win a prize, and maybe there's a cap on how many noses you can find per day, so that way the casuals don't miss out. But I love what PoE does. Like, PoE takes their game, gives you a completely different version of the game, and has a little bit of a race to it. Bro, I'm never going to win those events ever. I'm never going to win any prizes. And I think that that's way more fun than the season events that Diablo 4 is doing. So that's a complicated answer, in that what they're doing right now is probably fine for the masses. But if you want my answer, I haven't been enticed to play them at all for those reasons. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if we're speaking about what things we have gotten, I would say for the most part they're okay. Like, I don't love the season events. I don't hate them. Like, it's something to do. It doesn't take particularly long. It's not exactly thrilling. It comes in at a point in the season where we're pretty much already kind of done, and it's just sort of maybe giving us a couple more hours of playtime. On top of that, so we've had that, and we've also had Avatar of Zir that also released later in the season. That was in season 2. Season 3, we had the Gauntlet come in later on. In both those cases, that was content also not for me, so it's not something that I engaged in for very long either. I do like that there is stuff to come back for, but I think I'm like you in that I would like it to be something that I guess I personally would be more invested in.
So what would make you more invested in them?
That's a great question. And I think, I don't know how familiar you are with Helldivers. And I know anytime I bring this up, people are like, it's an entirely different game. It's an entirely different genre. Okay, sure. But to me, it is like the perfect example of live service done perfectly, because it's a game that cannot exist without it being a live service. It justifies in every way it being a live service. Their content rollouts, and I'm not saying that this is what they should do in ARPGs, but just to frame what they do in Helldivers too. They have a patch. They have a patch once a week with generally there's new content that rolls out on a pretty regular basis, and they have stuff in their patch notes, but they also have stuff that's not in the patch notes, and that tends to be like balance changes towards their weapons and stuff. That's definitely in the patch notes. But then new enemies popping up, that just sort of people discover it while they're playing the game, and they sort of like have little teasers going up to it like a week before, like, oh, on this planet I saw a mech and I could get in the mech, guys. I'm actually driving a mech. What the hell? They added mechs in the game. And then like 2 weeks later, they give us this major mission to actually unlock the mechs for everyone. So they sort of tease it in the game first. People are like discovering stuff in the game. It's like, oh, what's this cool stuff? And so the game is changing and evolving over time, and it's not all just like one patch where they say this is everything that's coming, and now there's nothing left to get excited about and discover. So for me, I've been loving Helldivers. Like, I don't really play games outside of stream, and I've been playing a ton of Helldivers with my friends and having a blast. So I don't know. I really like the way Helldivers is doing things. I wonder if there's any way to integrate that kind of stuff or something of that into an ARPG.
So you like the main thing for you is the element of surprise and discovery. You don't quite know what you're getting into, and you have a feeling that when you're playing, you might uncover, a little diamond in the rough kind of thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. And I think in the ARPG sense, we don't want to be changing builds, because in an ARPG, you are investing heavily into creating your build. So it's not like, oh, this new weapon, and now I need to like redo all my character or whatever. But like if it's content that we're doing, like a dungeon or an enemy type or a raid or, whatever, sorry, raid's not the word, some kind of boss or an Uber, like new things to engage with, as opposed to things that are changing our build, right? Like we want to stick with the same build that we're building up because we're investing time into it. If the game, if we're getting a balance change every week, then it's like, well, why am I even bothering to grind up all this gear? It's going to get nerfed next week. But I do think there's places, especially with this big open world of Diablo 4, justify the open world, make things happen that attract us to different places to go there. Check out whatever dungeon that is or whatever pit run, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of analogies in Diablo 4. I have been surprised a few times. I didn't know, I remember in the vampire theme, I didn't know how the ambushes were going to happen. I almost died.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I was testing on the PTR, and I ran into a goblin pack. They didn't put that in the patch notes, I don't
Oh
think.
yeah.
But those are probably kind of like maybe too small in scope for what you're talking about. You're looking for something a little bit bigger than that. But I mean, as someone who degenerately blasts the game, you definitely notice those things. I'm surprised they didn't put other kinds of goblins in the game. Maybe that's another thing I could ask them about.
I'd imagine maybe over time that's something they'll do. Yeah.
You want to know another thing that I really enjoy in games? It's in like all the different games. It's in PoE. It's in Elden Ring. It's in Diablo 3. I like it when you're playing the game and there's a very rare chance or like a secret that opens a portal somewhere entirely different, and it asks you the question, would you like to go in here instead and see what's in here? And when it's like, it's challenging or it's rewarding, then it can be really fun. Like when the vault spawns or the PoE side areas. When I went through the campaign as a beginner, you see the side area, you really want to go do it. It looks fun. You find out later, oh, you just skip everything and just run through it. But the idea of it is there. Elden Ring, you open a chest and it teleports you to an end game zone, and there's like a big dragon in front of you. It's like, should I really go fight him? Probably not. But if I kill him, he might drop me like his tooth or something, and then I can kill everybody. I wonder if that would be another kind of thing that you're describing. Can you give imagine you're running Nightmare Dungeons in season 4, and on your 40th one, it just drops a gold portal and it just says leads to a place that does not exist. It doesn't have to be the cow level, but anything. And you'd be like, holy shit, what is this? I have never seen this. Okay, let's go in. Let's see what we have here.
I think that'd be absolutely amazing. And I guess so. Question for you and for chat as well, because I know some people, they want everything to be launching at the start of the season. But what if that happened like a month in, like no announcement from Blizzard, but 1 month in to the new season, Rax is playing and suddenly a portal opens and no one knows what the hell this is. Everyone is seeing this for the first time on Rax's stream, and he goes in and it takes him to the cow level, for instance, or whatever, something else. And now all of a sudden people are like, whoa, there's this new level, and people are going to start logging. People who like they were done with the season, now they're going to start logging back in to try to find this new secret level. Oh, data miners. I didn't think of data miners. Ooh.
The thing about the interesting thing about data mining is, so there's a massive push to, find the cow level, and we have think we've progressed as far as we can into the quests or whatever. But the thing is with data mining is there is no data mine for an area called the cow level or anything with a mysterious name or mysterious mobs. Like, they've looked at it very, very thoroughly, and it's just not there. So it's kind of hard to. I don't know how you hide anything from the internet anymore. They did this already with sellers. I would say yes, on a very. I wouldn't say on a minor level. Sellers are cool, but you kind of have to. The thing about sellers is you gotta. Again, when I see a seller nowadays, now that I played the game for a while, I'm not dying to dive into that seller. I got bigger fish to fry. The surprise that could be waiting in the cellar is usually not worth the time invested to check it. That's why I don't know. When you see a seller, CJ, if you're doing Helltide, if you're trying to get some boss mats, if you're leveling up your Nightmare Dungeons, do you get on your pony and ride over to a cellar to go check it out for a surprise that might be in there?
Cellar? What is this?
The little random.
No, I'm trolling you. Yeah, no, I don't care at all about sellers. Yeah.
Okay. You got me on that one. I was like, what? Ugh.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Where like, if they are going to add these transformative things, they need to be significant enough that we would care about them, right? Like, if a month into the season they add like a flower in a town, like, it's not something that's big and exciting.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Before I let you go, are there any final things? Because I got one thing I have to do before we start here is I have to organize these probably by order of importance because I don't think I will get through like I don't know like any of this, but I'll try. Is there any other critical question that you would like to get an answer on that didn't get to yesterday that we haven't already covered?
I'm going to think on that a moment longer, but I will also say I ordered my questions in order of importance, and I realized I should have also kept in mind how long each of these questions would take to answer because I had to start triaging throughout the interview and skipping some of my important ones just because I knew that they would be really big answers. And so I was jumping down to still important but very shorter questions. So something just to bear in mind, I guess, as you're also asking those. I don't think I got to ask about map overlay. I know some people still care about that. It's probably going to be a shorter answer. Oh, PvP again, not a super priority thing, but I did kind of want to ask: like, are you guys happy with where PvP is now, or do you have any plans to expand on it in the future? Trade. You've opened up trade in season 4. Any plans to give us some tools or something to increase the quality of life of trade, so we don't have to go to external websites?
I have that's my number 3. I will get to that is social features, trading, group finder, clans, and asking about, trying to avoid third-party sites.
Beautiful.
Yep, I have that. So I can do like quick hits here. So the quick hits I have are how do they feel about loot filter? How do they feel about PvP? How do they feel about SSF? How do they feel about offline mode? How do they
Oof.
feel about ladders? We can put. Yeah, here's one question I wanted to ask. I mean, it's kind of low priority, but I wanted to ask them. Mike Ybarra, before he left, tweeted that Diablo 5 will come much faster than Diablo 4. Do you think I would ever get an answer to the question of have you guys already started to work on Diablo 5 or plans about what Diablo 5 would be? I mean, even if the answer is yes, do you think that will ever do you think I'll even get a yes or a no answer out of them for that or no?
They wouldn't say whether they've started work on Diablo 5. They might start. They might say they've been thinking about it. Which I mean, honestly, whether they've started working on it or not, like it's an easy answer to say. Well, sure, we've thought about Diablo 5. You might want to ask, like bring up the Ibarra quote specifically and ask what they think about that or what they think he meant about that. Might be a way to allow them to say something on the topic.
I'm just going to delete it. Let's just get rid of it. I ain't got no time for any wishy-washy questions that aren't going to get an answer. Another thing that I saw a lot of people ask about was the campaign. So a lot of people liked the campaign, probably like the most polished experience that Diablo 4 delivered, and the campaign is one and done. Now, some people despise the thought of doing the campaign again, especially like the escort quest with the camel or whatever. That was pretty brutal. But I wonder if Diablo 4 could be a game where you could actually choose and it would be a legitimate choice where you could benchmark, okay, what does leveling up in Helltide in the overworld look like after you spend 3 hours doing it? You are essentially at this level with this kind of gear, and then you time a campaign run for 3 hours and you expedite the camel quest or whatever, or make it, get rid of a lot of the stuff that no one wants to do a second time, but for the most part just keep the whole campaign intact. And then after you get done with that, you're at about the same spot, and let people choose. Do you want to do the campaign or do you want to do the overworld? Because right now if you do the campaign, you're just a million years behind.
That's actually a really clever way of doing it. Because yeah, my first thought upon hearing like the campaign, just exactly what you said. I'm like, oh god, like don't make us have to do the campaign again. But that's actually a really clever way of working it in where it's still more efficient to just slam the hell tides. But for those who want to do it, you're not going to be terribly far behind.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you as a person. I appreciate your professionalism in the interview. I think you cracked the egg and got into actually a lot of really good topics. I know a lot of people are big fans of yours. You've been doing this for a long time, so big respect, man. I'll try to do round 2 of this and see if we can get some more questions answered here.
Love you, Rax. Appreciate you. I look forward to your interview. Best of luck. You're going to kill it. And I'll be watching.
All right, man. Guys, round of applause for CJ. Here we go with round 2 of the interview for Blizzard. Thanks, man.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. Okay. So a lot of these questions up here I think are important. What I need I don't think I have I only have 16 more minutes, not even 16. So I have the top questions for you. The important thing here is the order. I'm going to ask these questions first. It's just follow up to CJ's interview. So I'm going to ask these questions first. Actually don't really care about this. I'm not going to have time. Let me just delete it. The top questions for YouTube I'm asking. The social features is way too important. I must ask it. Here's the this is supposed to be here. Social features is going to get asked 100%. I already asked this question. I can delete it. This is really not that important. Just delete it. Maybe I can put it down here. Let me organize this for a second. Give me a moment. Okay, let me look at this. This is probably lower priority. I'm going to put this lower. I don't really care about how Microsoft. I don't need this question anymore. Let's put this here and delete this. I really want to talk about this. I really want to talk about the target audience of Diablo 4, if they were willing to talk to me about it. I'm going to move this lower. Maybe here. Let's go like that. Okay. Maybe we can go here. It's actually a way. I want to know when Uber Tomb Lord is coming out. Did I put the campaigns somewhere else? God, another question that we need to ask. Oh yeah, map overlay. Another question that we need to ask is something about balance. This is kind of like a generic question. We can keep it, but maybe I put it much lower. Let's cut this out. This, I think, is a very good question. I really want to ask about. I must ask about this. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set a timer for 40 minutes. And then when I get to 40 minutes, I'm going to go to the quick hits and I'm going to ask all of them. Just real quick, knee-jerk reaction to what do they think about these things. So let's set it for 40 minutes. And then I'm going to ask all of them. What time is the interview? In 11 minutes. Okay. Okay. I think this is important. I already asked all of these, so I'm consolidating my list significantly. Social features. I need this to go here. This needs to be tabbed over. All right. Okay. Man, dude. Okay, so let's look at the order here that I have, and let's see if this is pretty good or not. So the first thing I want to talk to them about is Pinnacle content. I'm going to ask this first. They talked about it a lot in CJ's interview. I want to ask them, is there ever going to be skill involved in the end game, or is it all going to be about gear? Along with that, let's ask for a roadmap, and is their main focus the end game? That's the thing I care about probably the most. I think I can delete this question. I don't need to ask that. They always say that they deeply care about feedback. And one super mysterious thing about Blizzard is, how do you actually receive the feedback? Do you guys have meetings about it? Can you walk me through, like, does someone, is Adam, God, how many Adams are there? There's Adam Jackson, there's Adam Fletcher. How many Adams and Joes are there? Does he gather, is there a team that gathers it all and then you look at it and then you have a meeting about it? I want to know, how do they process feedback and how do they test things? I want to hear from them how they do it. The state of Nightmare Dungeons, they made them better. You can teleport to them. You buffed Glyph XP. They're putting more things to do in them, like events. You lowered the cast time to 0.75 seconds. And they said in CJ's interview that they want to iterate on Nightmare Dungeons. So I want to ask them, have they considered more qualitative ideas, not only with the current state of Nightmare Dungeons, but in the future? For example, can we carry multiple objects? If you have 2 rocks and 2 pedestals, if you go rock, rock, you're already guaranteed to backtrack, right? Stuff like that. Is there any reason why we can't reduce the cast time further? You miss 100% the shots you don't take. It's not necessarily that I mind freeing prisoners. It's I mind freeing 7 prisoners. Why is there 7 of them? How about like 3 where I just click them and they're free? And then the slay all with 1 monster behind. I know that there was a fix for little things to follow you, but that doesn't work all the time, and it bricked some of our Nightmare Dungeons. Don't get into drama questions. Right. I did. I don't think any of this has any drama to it. What? There's no drama here. Okay. I'm done. So they're setting up and their Discord is broken. their Discord is broken, so we're going to do it in Zoom. So they're going to send me a Zoom link. That there's something wrong with Discord. So we're going to Zoom. Okay. They're not trying to back out. No, they're not trying to back out. Yeah, M3X did Seattle. All right. Okay. Let's see how Zoom is going to go. All right. I guess we're going to join now. Let me switch my screen real quick and see if I can join this Zoom link. Be right back. Alrighty. Click on this. Open the Zoom meeting. Here we go. Join. That should work. Let's try that. Okay, I'm in. But let me see. I think I have to start virtual camera on OBS. Let me start the... There we go. Does that work? There. Well, kind of. I'm gonna have to let me move this down, maybe? There. That actually kind of worked. Okay. All right. It was a mic issue that was disable Adam Jackson's mic. I'm flexible, man. I am flexible. We do whatever. Whatever works. I'm big chilling over here. Big chilling over here. All right. Yeah, I'm just sitting here. Let's see if Adam and Joe can come in here. All right. Well, while we're waiting here, I guess there's no issue in me coming back here, right? Okay. Let me see here. Let me get rid of this webcam, maybe. Let me get rid of this. All right. What's up? All right. And I wonder if I can show... Hey, what's going on, man?
What is up?
What is up? All right,
We're doing it. It's happening.
It's happening. Can you guys hear him fine? Is he fine, up or down? How is it sounding, guys? Can you talk for a second, Joe?
Testing the ups and downs. You know, what's up? How do I sound, chat?
Okay, I can see it's way too low. I'm going to turn you way higher. Let's try again.
I could just start screaming, "Hey, how do I sound right now?"
Okay, is that better, guys? Up more, up more. Okay, we're going. I have you at 100. Okay, this is dangerous.
This is gonna get dangerous when I get excited about something. So we gotta watch out for that. Apologizing in advance.
Hey, thanks so much for coming on here, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah, this is gonna be a blast. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Hell yeah.
Where's my partner in crime? Where's Adam Z. Jackson?
You want to know what? He's faking all of these technical issues, and he's just like, you want to know what? I'm going to call in sick, and I'm just going to have Joe solo this.
Yeah, it's fine. Let's do it. Just sign him up for a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here tried my best to be as prepared as possible.
Cool.
But of course, I'm probably not prepared at all. So that's just the way life
No,
goes.
it's all good. Hey, and one thing up front, right off the top here is like, I have a lot of things I want to say, but it's okay if you want to interject. So it's not rude. I'm not gonna take it as being rude. So if there's things you want to chat through or things you want clarification on, like please interrupt me. It's all good. I feel like want to give that preface to everybody I talk to now on stream, right?
I would never
Hello.
interrupt that sweet, angelic, mellifluous voice. Speaking of
Okay,
that,
cool.
Adam
Let's take
Jackson
4
is
questions.
Can people hear me okay? I've spent the last 45 minutes troubleshooting my mic and it's been the worst. It's okay?
here. Dude, is that a paper towel roller by your bed? How do I get one of those?
I have kids. They're very messy. It's part of the life.
Dude, that's the most ingenious thing I've ever seen.
We're pretty creative over here. You can hear me
Dude.
okay, though. I'm very concerned about this. It's fine?
Yeah.
Okay, thank God.
I mean,
All
I
right.
can hear you.
Chat, can you hear them? Sounds perfect for me. How is it for you guys?
All right, cool. Because I fucked with all my computer settings and now everything's terrible. But as long as it works, I'm happy. All right.
All
We're
right.
good.
Okay, I'm starting a 40-minute timer. Then we'll do rapid fire at the end to try to hit as many as possible. If that sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. All right, yesterday, CJ Riker did an interview with them. So he asked a bunch of great questions. I want to do some follow-ups to some of the questions that you guys talked about. So one thing, the topic that I think you guys probably covered the most in the interview yesterday at different parts was about aspirational and pinnacle content. Some of the things that you said that was Uber Lilith at the start of the Diablo 4 was all mechanical mastery. If you don't dodge the waves, you're dead. There's pretty much nothing you can do about that. And a lot of players didn't have fun just, getting crushed by her waves. Talked about there's different levers to pull on the difficulty. You can make players weaker, like Nightmare Dungeon sigils. You can make monsters hit harder. You can give them more health, more crowd control. And I heard you say that the decisions that you make before you go into the encounter should matter more because it's an ARPG. It's about hunting loot. It's about getting powerful. And then you go in and you have a big advantage and you finally overcome the difficulty. And another thing that I heard you guys say is when you guys introduce very difficult events like the Avatar of Zir, for example, when you properly advertise it as something that's very difficult, you didn't get any negative backlash or too much negative backlash for the difficulty of it because it was properly labeled. So with that huge preface in mind, my question is do you guys have plans in the future of Diablo 4 to build in these very difficult encounters that do require skill, that do require you to go in and with an event or with a boss, learn their mechanics, and that is going to be another supplement besides getting gear to winning? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So I can just I'll start off. So yeah, everything we talked about yesterday, you just did a good job of covering again. I appreciate that. But when we think about what the future of aspirational content needs to look like in the game, we do want to leave opportunities for this kind of like mechanically complex content for players to engage with, and we experiment with it in a few different ways. So I don't think that like the Echo Lilith encounter, it's a really good example of us diving really hard into mechanical mastery, where we expect players to really have to be very, very active in terms of their dodges in order to survive. But we do want to continue to experiment with these ideas and try more things, particularly when they are advertised in the appropriate place. Adam, do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, originally I did, and it was like a very long-winded answer. But I don't want to take up too much time on this. I guess what I'll say is, everything kind of exists on a spectrum when we're talking about things like difficulty or a lot of game design topics and ideas. Like in this spectrum, in my mind, it's like, how hard should the thing be versus how much should your gear going into it matter, right? I think we're still trying to find out what the best answer is for the things that are really, really hard, like Uber Lilith or these crazy difficult fights. One of the things that we're doing in season 4 that we started doing in Beyond, that one of our encounter designers came up with a great idea, was adding this. I think you've probably seen our Rax, but that stacking debuff idea, where you can screw up getting hit by a wave a couple times, but then after that, you're probably just going to get one shot and die. And so that gives us this kind of happy medium between pure one-shot mechanics and things where you have to be perfect in your dexterity versus the other way where you can just like outgear everything. There's some other things I could go into of like the difference of the most powerful and least power or mid powerful builds and how we do difficulty. Or maybe we'll get that a different answer, but that's the TLDR. I think we're still trying to figure out what is best for our game and what our players like. In my heart of hearts, I'm more like you, Rax. I love the very, very crazy hard things. I don't mind one shots personally in my games, but I don't think it's best for this game.
Yeah. It's
for
not
the people that
millennia.
we have play it. Yeah, I don't think that it's best long term, but having a little bit of that kind of stuff sometimes I think is okay. I think it's more how much and how we introduce it and how we frame it to people. That's the simple answer. So
Okay, so kind of like one thing that you guys are liking is kind of like the soft enrages, where over time, eventually it gets so difficult that you're eventually going to lose.
Yeah, Final Fantasy
trying that
14
now,
does
yeah.
a good job with this as well. Like they have this idea, like if you mess up a mechanic, you're gonna get stacking debuff, and it can escalate and get worse and worse as the fight goes on. It's an interesting way to allow for some mistakes to occur, and for some learning to happen, but really like and to punish you, but not immediately spike you and end the encounter.
Awesome. So one thing that some other games doing is they release roadmaps of kind of like in the same topic of endgame of things that Callie, stop it, sit down. Sorry about that. So for Diablo 4, will we ever see roadmaps come out kind of showing like detailing what might be coming in the next 6 months to a year? I know that there's some challenges with that. Like if you guys change your mind, then like the community gets really mad at you. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's important that the community knows that we are identifying problems, and that we are listening, as I've said before. And I think that a roadmap does a good job of expressing some of this information, but it does, to your point, it does lock us into a schedule. So I think that we're kind of like thinking about how we want to approach like explaining these sorts of things. Like you'll recall back in like season 2, I mentioned at the very end of actually between when we were wrapping up season 2 and AOZ was out and we were getting ready to begin talking about season 3, I mentioned that we had identified a lot of itemization issues and things that we wanted to make upgrades to and make a number of updates, which turned into the Season of Loot Reborn in season 4. I wanted to make it clear that we identified a lot of the issues that the players have been talking to us about for a while, but we weren't able to like immediately resolve those sorts of things. So I don't want. One thing when I occasionally see from players when they see a long roadmap is they'll see something that they care deeply about it, like really, really towards the end of a year, and they'll ask them like, well, do they not think this is important? Do they not care about this? And I think that there's a way for us to talk about these things that players feel that they have confidence, like that we are looking at these problems and we do have plans. So I think we're just working through exactly the way that we want to approach this.
Yeah, I think I'll chime in a little bit. One of the things that you're going to hear as a constant theme from me and other designers say this with different words, but there's this idea that there's rarely really perfect solutions. There's really only trade-offs in the world, and this actually comes from an economic term that says that there's never solutions, only trade-offs. But when you ask us things like, why don't you do X or Y, or why don't you provide roadmaps? The way that our brains immediately go is, well, there's pros and cons, and which decision is best, trying to get the most pros that we can with the least cons that we can, right? A simple example with roadmaps is the pro of roadmap is everybody's on the same page. We show that, hey, we care about these things and the community knows what to expect, right? Obviously, that is a desirable thing to do. But there's big cons that maybe we have that you don't see, and this is where most design discussions end up, of people asking us, well, what do you think as developers? Is that we try to explain the cons to you so you understand the full picture. The cons of a roadmap is we're locked in now. We've promised things to you that we may not be able to do for whatever reason when things end up changing down the road, right? Life has a way of screwing with your plans, especially when you try to plan things more long term. This isn't just true with game design, but anything. So we try to make promises and keep promises. Like one of my things I'm really passionate about as a designer is when it comes to interacting with the community, making promises and then keeping them. So I'm extremely careful of the promises that I mean, this is just my strategy of how to build trust with people and the community and just life in general, is I'm very careful of what promises I make, and then I make damn sure when I do that I keep them. And so to do that, the longer our roadmap goes out, the higher chance we're not going to keep those promises. Some things, for example, that we've seeded in the past, I remember it was either our season 1 or season 2 campfire chat. I made a list of things that our team wants to do longer term. One of those things on those lists was making scaling mechanics for legendaries that kind of suck. And we finally were doing that in season 4, right? You know, your Earthquake legendaries, all of those, we finally made them scale with your weapon to make the damage go up. I also talked about at the time, and we haven't delivered on this yet, in my opinion, but making ultimates meaningful and scale in a similar way. It's on our radar. It's something I want to do. Haven't done it yet. I didn't give a date because I don't know when the date is, because our timelines and schedules and priorities changed quite a bit based on community feedback. You know, if I had made the promise like, hey, we're definitely fixing ultimates, then Loot Reborn wouldn't have happened because I have to spend my team's time on doing that other thing. But this other thing came up that I think is way more important for the game. And that's just kind of how the nature of our job goes.
Thank you for the super detailed answer. And that is a perfect segue into my next question. It's kind of like an edition of Mythbusters, kind of. So a lot of people in the community, a lot of the people that are angry in the community about, you know, whatever it is they're angry about at the time, they say that
passionate. They're passionate about something.
Passionate.
Right? Very passionate.
That's the word we're looking for.
Constructively passionate, yeah.
Yeah, constructively passionate.
So one thing that they have like the meme video of you guys saying feedback, feedback, feedback. And then on the internet from a bunch of different angles, they say Blizzard doesn't listen to feedback. They don't do anything. They don't even test their game. We're their beta testers, da, 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 da. So I wanted to ask you guys, could you give us some insights into how your team actually processes and internalizes feedback? Is it like concatenated for you and you guys have a meeting and you discuss it like that? How do you guys go about testing things internally to kind of debunk all of these myths that you guys are just working by yourselves and never listening to anything, which we know is not true?
You want to go first, Joe, or?
Yeah, I think we both probably have different things we want to say about this. So I think that the point on feedback, I think you're that's being brought up, there's like kind of two things. Like one, are the designers in a corner entirely by themselves, like just making decisions with no information being given to them? And the other version is like, is the team listening to the community, right? And then how do we process these sorts of things, right? So the starting from the does the team listen to the community like side of this thing, you know, we are always reading everything on that's getting posted on Reddit. We're getting everything that's posted on the forums. We're going through our socials on a regular basis. We have teams of people like Adam Fletcher, you know, the community director. He's going through and like kind of gathering a lot of this information for us. And in places where like I personally can't read every thread in every social media site, right?
You can't?
But I can't, because there's other things I also do as part of my job, but I do read a lot of stuff, right? And a lot of things get sent to me. So a lot of that stuff can get like kind of pulled together for like reporting purposes and brought to us, right? And I think that's really, really useful. We also have a lot of internal feedback that we get from the team. Like, so when we start working on something, we were able to like kind of give a presentation to the overall dev team to get an idea of what we're trying to do. We have regular play tests where like a large group of people all get a chance to kind of give us feedback on a regular basis, and we can keep checking in with them as time goes on. So that's I think that's a starting point for these things, but it's really important to us that we are like hearing things from the community, because that's kind of telling us like are the changes that we're making right now, are they effective? Like, are people having a good time with these things? Because we can look at all kinds of data, determine things, but like hearing what people talk about is also really, really important. When players have needs that aren't met, you know, it's our job to find ways to kind of like bridge the gap there and make sure that they're being heard and the game is going to be more fun for them. But Alan, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So firstly, I would say different game companies, different teams, and even different teams within a bigger team have different cultures and ideas and ways that they process feedback. So I'll tell you what I do on my team and kind of what D4 kind of does as a larger team, right? So on the live team, we are probably the most interactive with feedback because we're doing the live changes. We have to be very connected to the game to make good decisions. So I give this speech a lot to the people in my group of, your job as a designer is to go and find the problems with the game, and then you are the filter when the community comes in and brings up things, whether it's a streamer giving things. I post things all the time from streamers. I post things all the time from Reddit threads. I post things all the time from our forums. Anywhere that you can go out and go, and also personal play experience. Nothing replaces that as well. So we actually dedicate every day at least some amount of time that everybody in my group is either playing an internal build of future things coming out in the game, which I'm playing through season 5 right now and I'm really far in it, or they're playing their live character in the live game, because you need to understand the game and understand the problems. And the way that I do things, or what I've been trying to tell my team, and I think we're pretty good at, is while you are parsing all of this feedback, and playing the game yourself, you keep a running list of notes of crap that sucks that you want to make better, or ideas that other people had that you think are good ideas that you want to make better. Now, of course, not every idea is equal, right? You don't copy every Reddit thread and every single thing that someone says. We are the filter of trying to figure out. Remember, I talked about those no perfect solutions, only trade-offs. This is where we're like, hey, they brought up an idea and we think it's good. Now we need to explore if that can actually work in the game. And this is where we come up with our list of things and priorities that we're going to do. That's a starting point. That's one of a few starting points. The first starting point is, community feedback, our own play experience. Another one is telemetry. That's just a fancy word for data. We have the ability to see data all over the game of how many people are equipping different legendary aspects, how many people are engaging with certain types of content. We can see what's working, what's not working, what people are actually doing versus what they say. Usually what they say will match what people are doing, but there's a mismatch. Then we have to have a discussion of like, hey, how important is this actually? And then another way is internal testing tools. Again, we have groups that give us presentations and people who their job is to look through data and do focus sessions and all kinds of other fancy tricks to come up with stories and understanding the different types of players we have and what they're doing and how they work. And they give us presentations on different topics that we're interested in, or they find their own topics of things that maybe we didn't think of that we may have missed. And then last but not least, we have internal people. We have a big team of people working on this game, and we have certain feedback avenues via emails or channels that we give feedback to each other, because on new stuff, we can't rely on telemetry or the community or all those other things. And that's where things are a lot harder. I think Joe went into this yesterday a little more deeper, so I'll just gloss over it. But this idea that Diablo is a freaking huge game that takes forever to play and really truly understand because our systems are so interconnected. So there is no substitute for actually going through that 80+ hour experience and playing everything. The part that makes that really hard, and where I think the community gives us a hard time sometimes, I think a little bit of it is warranted, but it's a cursed problem is what I call it, which is another concept I'll go into later, is that to really test our game, you need to spend your life playing our game in many ways, or a lot of time, more hours than what you normally would expect someone to work at a job. Right? So we can't tell people, hey, you must spend all your life playing this game, but also, by the way, you have to design and create the new things too, right? So that means that internally, it is really hard to play test the full amount of our game as a designer. We have to rely on, we have people in QA and other play testers that do play this content. We either direct them of things we want to test and play, or they just find things on their own that they think, hey, they bring it up to us like, hey, we think this is a problem, and we have to parse that. But there isn't enough time for a single design or every designer to play the game fully all the time, but we do still play it a good amount, and we use those internal feedback mechanisms to make things the best that they can. And this is where I think there is that little disconnect sometimes with the community where, yeah, we would love to polish things and play it. Now, I would love to play Season 5 200 hours before it comes out. I only get it for, 50 hours, right? And we have to use our guts and existing ideas and telemetry to figure out if the decisions we make are right. And then we use after we launched the game to really fine tune and make it perfect, right? And that's kind of the overall process of how things work.
Yeah, one last thing I want to add here too is that even when we're just thinking about like a feature, like we're talking about like adding one thing, like something like the pit, for example, good example because it's gonna be new coming out in season 4. If you sit down and you play the pit for an hour one day, you're gonna feel a certain way about your experience playing the pit. You're gonna feel differently if you play that for 2 hours a day, 5 days straight. And you experience it through that entire process. You're gonna have a different relationship with the content at that point. And players are gonna go, 10, 20x that number by the time they're done playing in season potentially. So like it's really, really important that we get the reps in on these features to make sure that they're really resonating and they're singing, they're doing everything they need to do, right? So I think if there's a lot of truth to everything that Adam's talking about. Everything is a lot of trade-offs. There's a lot of things we need to do. And this kind of links to the PTR. The PTR feedback for season 4 was hugely valuable because now suddenly we're able to like take what we already know about the season and then multiply that like 10, 20, 50 fold as we get tons of players going in, checking things out, not just from the telemetry, but also just in the feedback we're getting from content creators, from players themselves. Like we've got a lot of really good data for that. So it's been very useful for the same reasons that Adam talks about.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
One last real quick thing is this is where you get things that seem obvious to players that were bad ideas, but sounded like really good ideas when we're sitting in a room talking about it. A simple example I'll give in season 4 is when you temper your items or things, and there's like a really nice thing that plays, and you can see it, it's visual, but you can't skip it easily, right? That kind of stuff is where sometimes things fall through the cracks of, hey, doing this 2,000 times is actually terrible because you got to wait forever, versus, well, we want to have a moment of celebration and for the cool thing to be cool. Balancing these things is what can be harder to do internally, where obviously we've messed up enough times, and this is true for every game company, so I'm not afraid to admit it, but like, we've made that mistake enough times that now we're very cognizant of it. Like, we make a new feature or a new activity, like, hey, how does this feel if you're doing it for 200 hours? Is this still going to be something that people want to go through, right? That's a question now that we ask all the time. But even then, there are times where we have to kill otherwise good ideas, or we have to flex a little bit because we do need some presentation or some tutorialization or some other thing to balance that, even if it makes the 2,000 times experience a little bit worse, right? The answer is not always so obvious, I guess, but we are receptive to, like, when the community tells us clearly, hey, no, we want it to be this way, we're going to do it that way.
I mean, it was a lot of great points. I mean, I'm very glad that I asked that question, because the thing that is refreshing to me, the thing that I wanted to hear more than anything, is that you guys have a chance to actually play through the game, and not only to hear that you guys play the game as almost part of the job description, but it sounds like you actually put a big effort into that. I mean, that makes me feel great, honestly. That's so great to hear. I'm so glad that's part of the process. Talking about some of the current modes in the game, let's talk about, you talked about yesterday the state of Nightmare Dungeons. CJ did a ton of iteration on it. Now we can teleport to them. You just buffed Glyph XP. You said that you'd like to add more fun things to do to them in the future. You guys made events better now. I saw goblin packs, I think, on the PTR. When you put the vampire ambushes, that was good. You reduced the cast time down to 0.75 seconds. So we're going to have new things coming out for it. My question is going forward, it looks like you guys made a ton of qualitative changes to it. Like, you just make it a little bit easier to access all of these different things rather than riding around on your pony to every single thing, and everything takes forever. When you are designing future things, is that kind of at the front of your mind with things like, oh, maybe at Nightmare Dungeons, we can carry multiple objects? Because if there's 2 rocks and 2 pedestals, if you go rock, rock, you're guaranteed to backtrack. I mean, I have 2 hands. And then, have you thought about reducing the cast time even further? I know that one comment was, if the cast time is so low, then people may not even see that they interacted with something, but maybe that could be updated via like a little quest thing. Oh, quest, pick up 2 rocks. Oh, it highlights. Oh, now pick up 1 rock. And another part of it was, it's not just that I have a problem freeing prisoners. I have a problem going to Dead Man's Dredge, and the quest objective is I have to free 7 prisoners. Like, how many people got caught here? Is qualitative stuff still at the front of your mind when you're iterating on these things and in the future events that you're going to make?
So I think that there's a couple different pieces to pick apart here, right? So with Nightmare Dungeons, they're building upon the dungeons we had in Diablo 4, right? And these were supposed to be these really, like, kind of interesting little content things you could find all over the world. They all had little bits of like environmental storytelling, objective-based storytelling, some side quests point to these dungeons as well. And we want players to feel like they're going on a little bit of an adventure when they go into these. We didn't initially make the content in these spaces to feel like they were just like blast corridors, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. So I think that as we think about what different players are looking for and what we can do to improve the experience for everybody, we don't want to lose the kind of like the contextual and like fantasy underpinnings of what players are doing when they go into these spaces. To your point, like, it's not that you hate freeing prisoners, but you don't like that it might take 0.75 seconds to do it, is one question maybe. And then there's another one where it's like, we don't want to free 7. So you kind of want it to be like a faster, more punchy experience, but it's not that you don't like having to click those objects as part of your experience going through a dungeon. I think that like there's an expectation when players are doing some of these actions that there is a response. So having just a quest tick for some things, I'm not saying that this is we would only ever make this decision. Having a quest tick for things like freeing a prisoner, it is feedback. Is it as impactful as having the moment where you get to see your character unbind the binds? I'm not so sure, but in the end, is that value? It's to Adam's point earlier about like, it's about making trade-offs. Is the idea for the player who does care about like kind of going slowly through the space and trying to find the collectibles and trying to do all these things? For that player, is it going to be a big miss for them if they click on stuff and it just kind of like has a quick update, doesn't feel like anything really changed? So it's sort of like where we want to optimize things. I think when you look at content like the pit, and a lot of things we did in Helltide as well. We've made a lot of attempts to try to make sure that the content feels like there is less friction, as you're going through. So like when you get into a flow state that you're happy with, that you can kind of maintain that pace. So, and we made a number of changes you already called out to Nightmare Dungeons to also kind of support this. So I think it's a question of like how much further do we want to go within Nightmare Dungeons specifically, right? Because I think we've already said that we're looking at this for other pieces of content. I don't know where we're going to fall necessarily for the channel time for clicking on objects and freeing them. It could be that it comes down a little bit lower. It could be that we decide we want to make changes to make it more instantaneous. We haven't really made a decision. We'll continue to be looking at feedback as we play, and also from like different players, like players who are just playing Diablo 4 for the first time, want to kind of hear what their experience is like as well.
Awesome. So here's kind of maybe a huge question, but asked very directly. So what is kind of the future of the overworld in Diablo 4? When we first released, it was kind of the main thing. You used it to do everything, and kind of the first experience was that 50 to 100 grind. Now 1 to 100 is much easier, and the focus is probably, enjoying that journey, going to the pit, and anything in the future that you're going to release. A lot of the things that seem to come out, though, the abattoir and the challenge rift thing and the pit, they're all instanced things. Are there big plans for the overworld? Is that still like the defining characteristic of Diablo 4, or are we moving away from that?
So Diablo 4 and the fact that we have this like big contiguous sanctuary is still a really big part of Diablo 4. I think that we want to continue to expand the landmass and the areas where players can explore. That's still an important part of things. But in terms of how players are engaging with the experience overall, we do expect that one of the downsides of the open world is that it's a fixed layout, right? So if we think about like the sorts of things that players like to play in a like a replayable content fashion, right? It's not normally in place where you like really want to keep running through exactly the same glade in the fracture piece or exactly the same area, of Kazakhstan. Like it's usually you're trying to like find like different things to kind of go engage with, and like our dungeon systems are places where you can really do a lot more of that. I think we push it really well within Helltides. There's lots of things happening in Helltides. They're pretty procedural in terms of how things are spawned in and like what sorts of events you might find as you're kind of wandering around. But in terms of like having a lot more like flexibility to create different experiences, we have that really more in other systems. But I think this is like going back to some things I talked about the other day. There's sort of like the experience that a player has. Diablo is a big game, right? And I don't say that to suggest that anyone's needs are less important. Just that there are a lot of different needs. Different players have different expectations. So when some players come into Diablo, like they're here because they want to go through like this epic story. They want to play they really want to play a sorceress, and they want to like see what happens to Lilith. They want to go explore they want to find all the things in all the zones, and they want to get really, really powerful. And then they're gonna take a break until the expansion comes out. That's just the way that they sort of play these games. That's how they play, right? Yeah. For those players, these moments as they explore the world, it's really, really important because that's their experience with Diablo. It's like their exploration of the overworld, them going and finding all these side quests, talking to all these characters, and that's their relationship with the game. For players who play seasonally, it's once you've kind of like uncovered all the map locations, once you've found all these things and done this stuff, there's not usually a lot of reasons why you want to go and have that same moment of discovery again. You can't really recreate it. We talked for a while about like moving Lilith statues around season to season, so you'd have to collect them again. It's another one of my brilliant ideas. Yeah. So we didn't do it, of course, right? But like we had the idea of like every season we'd move where the Lilith statues could be found, so players would have to go find them again. But then the next conversation is immediately like, well, okay, so people are going to go onto Maxroll or whatever, and they're going to go immediately see where the node map is for the next set of Alter Lilith. They're going to then that's now their new homework they have to do at the beginning of every season. They have to run around on their horse and go collect every single one of these. And it's like, is that fun? No, clearly not for that player. But it wasn't that it was necessarily horrible the first time players do this. Like that's part of the fun of like almost like an open world game anyway. It's kind of like exploration and finding things. So I know that I'm getting to go long, but so I think that the underpinning point here is that the overworld of Diablo 4 is still really, really important. As we think about how to make the best use of it for like replayable content. You know, Helltide's a good example of this. Blood Harvest was really helpful for kind of giving us some like ideas of what players are really excited about, things that we could do better, like the kind of light social gameplay of summoning creatures and things. And I think we have other ideas we continue to explore in that direction. I think Legion events and boss events are things we continue to like kind of iterate on and think more about. You know, but I think that in terms of creating like really compelling replayable content, I think it's going to end up being in more of the space where you have like more procedural control over how like the dungeon is formulated or like what players can expect to encounter, as opposed to these more fixed outdoor locations. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I guess
laughing at me. I didn't answer the question.
No, these are such in-depth answers. I'm just scared. I'm looking over at my questions. I'm trying to figure out how to skip around for all of them. So I guess
I'm so sorry.
No. So the main takeaway that I'm getting there is the overworld is a super important part of it, like a first player's experience, discovering everything. But then it's hard to recreate that magic for the people that come season to season to season, and that's why it goes more to instanced stuff. Is kind of, I guess, the summary of it.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, I think we're also just on a regular basis looking for new ways to engage with the open world in ways that are going to be fun for seasonal players as well. Like, so we're continuing to find like just experimenting with things, see what makes it like fun and new for players.
Okay, I promised I would ask this. So there might be a player out there that you guys have heard of and have maybe added, I don't know, hundreds of hours of overtime to the team. Rob, and
yeah,
Rob. You're familiar.
That's a little familiar. Yeah.
So
good
he
guy,
had
that Rob. Love Rob.
He is a good guy. He is a good guy. He had two questions about the pit. These are probably a little bit more straightforward, but I guess for end game activities, do you guys ever think about or worry about, I guess, fishing? So like, it gets to a point in the pit where, oh, you're fishing for the right mob type, or you're fishing for the right boss, and then you just leave, kind of like what happened in Diablo 3. Or, oh, I'm going to go get Ahavarion, and hopefully that it procs the amazing shrine for me, so then I can finally win. And do you guys, off the top of your head, know about how much the health in the pit was buffed by? And I'm guessing that the main idea for there is not only to add difficulty, but to actually, because when you were going through the pit, the builds are so strong that you delete the rift part of it in 2 minutes, like clockwork every time, and the monsters don't even get to do anything. So I assume like the part of the reason for buffing it is to actually even let them get a hit on you and see what they even do.
Yeah, I can take the first part of the question at least. I mean, I can take both too. If Joe wants to take the other part. So talking about fishing. Yes, fishing for stuff keeps me up at night, and I hate the problem, and it's a really hard problem to solve. Remember that rarely perfect solutions, only trade-offs thing, right? So this very much applies to this type of problem, right? A core thing that we want in our game is, and when it comes to combat and effects and legendary powers and unique powers and whatever, is we want to push the envelope, make cool shit, right? So on one end of the spectrum, you need to make cool stuff, right? And that involves doing things that aren't necessarily completely deterministic, because I think completely deterministic things after a while get kind of boring, right? When you know that you're going to get this effect, or it's up all the time, or you do this and get this. Like, we do it a lot, by the way, so I'm not saying that's not a good design, but just you need to have some spiciness, some really cool, crazy things, right?
Yes.
And that unique, uber unique power is one of those. On the flip side, though, it means that when you make really hard content, doing things like wanting to make cool stuff, fishing gets in the way of that a lot of times, especially in randomly generated content, which is what the pit is in many ways. So that is why we have to do things that, by the way, we as designers don't like removing the fun shrines or the things that are going to break, because then you just find the shrines that, break the game in whatever way, and that's all that you're doing, and that becomes the game.
Yep.
This is a core thing about ARPGs that in my opinion, after working on it now for years, and I've been involved in pretty much every game genre extensively as a player and many as a designer, I think ARPGs are one of the hardest, if not the hardest, genre to design for. MMOs are really high up there too. There's a lot of other genres I think are very difficult, but ARPGs are a special slice of awfulness when it comes to trying to make things fun and also make them interesting. And this is one of the reasons why. So as far as like this exact design of the spear, we're keeping it in for now. I would be very sad if we had to redesign it because it's the only way to get through high pit tiers. That would make me personally sad, but because that is the most difficult thing to do, we may have to make a tweak to it, but we're not doing it yet. We're going to see how it plays out. But I think that the conversation is more interesting of conceptually, like, is this a problem? Yes, absolutely. Does it mean that we can't do things that would otherwise be cool and awesome for your average player? Yes, absolutely. But we also think it's best for the game because I think fishing for the right tile set, the right mob, like restarting a thing over and over to be able to progress is not fun. And therefore, we have to design the rest of our game knowing that that is a thing.
Yeah, just adding to that too. Like, I think that, we definitely see fishing as a problem, so much so that we built the gauntlet, for the trials feature with
Yeah.
fishing specifically as the thing we're trying to account for.
Yeah.
Where we said, all right, if we have a competitive content feature players are going to engage with and it's randomized, then players aren't really competing until they find exactly the right seed that they manage to roll to compete against, because that's the actual optimal seed that they need to compete on.
Yeah.
It's only against this monster family, or only with this dungeon tile layout, or only with this, like, these set of shrines, or whatever it is. So instead what we did is we made a highly deterministic content type that changed every week. And players went to it and said, like, well, why is it so fixed? Like, this is boring. Like, I want something that's different and changes every time. But then you kind of fall back to that same point that I have brought up about, like, the trade-offs for all the problems that we have. Then we have to decide, like, all right, so are we okay with the idea that, like, players are going to go into a gauntlet run, and they're going to have a wildly disparate experience potentially between person A and person B, and they are just continually running the content over and over again in the hopes they eventually get a good seed, and that might be the way that they're able to place, because the difference could potentially be vast between one thing and the next. So it's it's a complicated space, something we definitely think about. The other part of your question was what do we do about like health scaling in the pit?
The HP, yeah. How much did it go up by?
Yeah, so we did make some big changes there. So basically what was happening in the PTR is that monster health scaling was pretty mild in the pit going through the first 100 levels. It was basically virtually nil, from level 100 on, more or less, right? So we ended up putting it in a place where like the tier 200 pit is like, okay, so like around tier 150 pit is like close to where AOZ was, for like tier 25 AOZ runs, and tier 200 goes beyond that. So it's pretty considerable. The scaling has been increased.
Okay.
We still want it to be gradual as you're kind of progressing through, because we want you to feel that you have a place to push. It's not like, so like, because AOZ was 25 tiers, extremely chunky when you went from tier to tier as you got deeper and deeper inside. Here it's a little more gradual as you go further and further, and we think that that's going to be good experience overall. Because it's ultimately a lot of the materials you really want from the pit you can gain by the time you're like doing like tier 60s. You start to get like little bits of the neath iron that you need to kind of start finishing off your masterwork items, and then that gets more and more efficient as you go deeper and deeper. But we do want to have these like really difficult challenges. We made a decision at the launch period of the game where we took Nightmare Dungeons difficulty and we kind of scaled it in a different way. Whereas like initially they were extremely challenging going up to tier 100, and we ended up making a reduction in their difficulty going into season 1, where we basically rebalanced things such that like the tier 75 old Nightmare Dungeon was the new tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon, and players no longer had that measuring stick, that really difficult content anymore, because we kind of took it away. We want that to still be there in the pit.
I mean, I think if tier 200 is far beyond Abattoir of 0.25, especially with some of like the balancing and the bug fixes to a lot of different builds, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I expect that to be pretty challenging. I don't think people are going to do that as a cakewalk. Okay, so we have 8 minutes left. I already cut off my timer. There's no way I can get to 99% of these questions. So how do we feel about maybe doing a little rapid fire? Okay.
Sure, yeah.
This was talked about yesterday, if I remember correct. So these are the top questions from YouTube. So I promised I would ask them. So here we go. This was the #1 question by far, and it was touched on a little bit yesterday. Is there an armory coming? I heard yesterday, I think if I quote you correctly, you said that armory is great. The team likes it, had to prioritize some things. Will an armory be coming to Diablo 4 so we can save our builds? If you can answer it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem that I think that thplayers have. I think I've already mentioned that we're in the business of trying to like solve player problems. It's a thing we're really excited about. It's a thing we would like to do, and that's all I can say right now.
They're excited about it, guys. Okay. There's lots of different ways to expand the game, and as Joe put it yesterday, different slices of the pizza to give you power. Again, from YouTube, it seems like the most requested way that people would like to expand power or change their builds is to have the skill tree expanded. Is that something that we can look forward to at some point coming to Diablo 4? Is the team passionate about expanding the skill tree in multiple ways? Maybe you'll even give us an ultimate button so we can get another skill. You never know.
Yeah, I'll take this one, I guess, unless you want to say some more. I would say we have nothing to announce about big updates to the skill tree. It is a little bit more of a complicated problem because we want the skill tree to remain as an easy gateway for new players and returning players to come back and kind of know what that is. And we didn't want the complexity and heft of our game to be there. So it comes with some nasty trade-offs that I'm not sure that we're willing to make, but we are open to the idea of adding some more depth to the skill tree, but we don't want it to be super complicated.
It's not going to be the PoE encyclopedia.
We don't want that, at least not for our game. We want the depth to be in crafting and in other places.
Yeah, if I could show like seeing how different players, like, again, there's a lot of people who, like, this is their first Diablo game, like seeing what players did with the skill tree in testing. Yeah, I think it would be very surprising to you and your audience.
They take all the generators and max them to 5.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and other things like that. It's a tougher problem than I think a lot of people give it credit for, and I don't know that the juice is worth the squeeze if we go too far. But hearing that people want more, we've heard that loud and clear, but nothing to announce in the immediate future.
Okay, the next one. For repeated and summoning content now and in the future of the game, are there plans to let people just resummon these bosses without resetting the instance? Because that eats up a lot of time for the people that do want to farm up a bunch of things and kill some bosses.
Yeah, this is a really good idea. There's a lot of things that get cleaned up when players reset a dungeon that makes it a lot easier for us to do this in the first place. Let me take that back to the team. I don't know that we've talked deeply about like exactly when we could deliver something like this, but we definitely see it as something that you can improve. So yeah, we'll take that back.
All right. Last one from YouTube here. Will the campaign receive further attention? So first of all, obviously, probably the story continues with the expansion, but another way is currently when you start up a new season of Diablo, you can go through the campaign again if you want, or you can probably now go farm in Helltide, and the Helltide is going to level you 1,000,000 times faster for 1,000,000 more rewards. It's not close at all. And some games force you to do the campaign. Some games in Diablo 4 you don't have to. Have you guys thought about maybe editing the campaign slightly for a replay, maybe taking out like the camel escort for example, and maybe benchmarking how long does it take to do a campaign just normally playing? What is it, 3 hours, 4 hours? I don't know what it would be. And then benchmarking what it would be to do it in Helltide and kind of have them at the same point at the end of those journeys to allow players a real choice in how they want to start out their new season, because the campaign was such a fan favorite on the launch and it was very well done.
Sure. So I think that there is like the Quest team has a lot of really cool ideas of things that you want to do to allow for players to like replay the campaign or to make it to kind of edit it a little bit in some ways like you suggest. I think that it's a thing that we're thinking about as we go, but we know that we want to make sure that we are prioritizing the piece of the game that need work first, if that makes sense. Like, I think that the idea of being able to replay a campaign is very, very exciting. And I think that there's really neat things we can do. And we do have plans in the future for this stuff as well. I don't want to like make it sound like we're not committing to anything here. We kind of do want to do something like this. It's just that there's a lot of other like replay features, like Helltide, for example, that we thought we're in a great position to like lift up and make feel like more exciting for players. So that's been more of a priority for us. But I do think that there's opportunities there for sure.
Something there I want to point out, and this would help when the community is discussing things or when you even are with us, is this idea of opportunity cost. I don't know if you know what. Are you familiar with that term, Rax?
Yeah, economics.
Maybe not.
Give up something to gain something else.
Cool. Then I don't have to explain it. But yeah, the opportunity cost comes very heavy into play when we talk about features and suggestions and things from players. I think a lot of times it can be frustrating as a member of a community, because I'm a member of gaming communities too, so I know how it is. I'm like, hey, this thing, it sounds like a good idea, and we all agree it's a good idea. Why don't the devs do it right away? And most of the time when that is true, it's because of opportunity costs. It's either opportunity costs or something that you didn't realize makes it harder than it seems. But opportunity costs, here it's like, do we do loot reborn? Do we redo how all the loot works in the game and your entire leveling experience with our updates to Helltide? Or do we make the campaign have parity with not doing campaign to level up, right? Now, having campaign have parity to non-campaign obviously is a good thing, but I would argue very heavily that loot being better in a loot-based game is more important and impacts more people in a better way, in a more long-term way. And then the list goes long and long, forever of the things that you could do versus what you have to decide to do. And then the other part, kind of alluding to your last question about resummoning bosses, is that I would say in that one, like, yeah, obviously, good idea, better player experience. In there, I would say the reason why we're not doing it, just knowing how the game works a little bit more, is our game wasn't structured that way, and we have to do a lot of things to make it structured that way. And the answer to actually do it is harder than most people would think, and that is why. Both of these things are obviously good ideas that we would want. There's different reasons why we haven't done them yet. Doesn't mean they won't happen, but it means that it's why they're not happening now or yet. And that's a better way to frame it when people are talking to each other. It's like, hey, what should the Diablo 4 team do first or now? Or, hey, maybe this is a little bit harder. Could you explain why it's harder? Would be a good question for an interviewer, for example, right? Because then you're going to get actual insight into why rather than just complaining that it's not happening.
Are you providing
Right.
Rax feedback on this?
I might be giving feedback on feedback.
No, come
That's
on.
part of my job too. But I like productive conversations is why. And I think the community would rather have more productive conversations than their only avenue is to complain and not know why things aren't working the way that they want them to.
I think people want to know how things work. I think that makes sense.
They want to know how things work. I want to educate people so that we can have better conversations about games.
I mean, I'm a loser, guys. I'm always here if you guys ever want to talk, which we're actually at time. I
ask one more.
All right. I mean, probably the one that I'm just going to ask a 15-part question then to abuse the one more. I guess
I love it. Gamer at heart.
Probably the most important one that's still left on the list is about social features. So I have three main topics of I can't believe how many questions I put here. That was so stupid of me. I mean, there's no chance at all. Anyway, social features. So there's three main things: trading, group finder, clans. So with trading, what are your guys' thoughts on putting an auction house-esque type of thing just to allow trading and to avoid third-party sites? Obviously not a real money auction house. People are begging for a group finder. I don't know why. People have cooties. I'd rather play by myself, but I guess people want it. And then clans, I understand there's a big difficulty with clans, not just implementing them. Like, they were implemented in Diablo 3, but Diablo 3 clans mean absolutely nothing. It's just a second friends list. There's no achievements to do. There's nothing to unlock. There's nothing to work toward. But then if you put that in the game, opportunity cost, the thing that the economic principle we keep talking about, then if you build that in the game, then people have to belong to a clan. And otherwise they feel left out, which then leads me to another one of my million questions about SSF, but whatever. So for social features, trading, group finder, clans, what are your guys' thoughts on those three for Diablo 4?
Let's get going. So for trading, okay? Trading in Season 4, players can trade legendaries and uniques. They're still going to have to go and actually meet up to do those trades. There's not going to be an automated trading function. There are things we talked about with regards to the trade chat channel to make it a little bit easier to navigate. In terms of creating an actual auction house user interface, it's a thing the team has discussed, but it's not a thing we've landed on. We really want to see what the reaction is from players in Season 4 and what the experience is broadly for players in Season 4. How many players are actually trading? Because I imagine there's going to be, it'll be different for different types of players, right? But I think there could potentially be room for an investment there because we don't want to just push players just to third-party sites. But we were at a point where we're like, well, do we really want to go and make a whole? It would be opportunity cost would be a big investment to go make an auction house for Diablo 4, for example, without knowing exactly what the desire for it is going to be, and we didn't want to wait to let some of these things be tradable in the meantime. So that's the high-level version. We're not opposed to it. We want to see how things go in Season 4. With regards to the Group Finder, I think is the way that you call it. We do want to make sure that there are easier systems for players to use to find parties of players who are doing things that interest them. We do have a social team on Diablo 4. They've been thinking about clan stuff, things like this, things that make socialization more easy between players. I think there'll be exciting stuff to share in the future. So there's things we're thinking about. And there are, and then with regards to, what's the last one? Clans, of course, clans. We also have ideas of things we want to do to update parts of the clan functionality to make it just a little more engaging, to give more purpose to parts of clans. You know, this is a thing that we have designs for and things we're thinking about, but I can't announce anything today. Just to say that we recognize there's some parts of social features in Diablo 4 that can be leveled up, made better, and there's process we see players going through as part of regular play in seasons that we want to make easier, more streamlined for them.
Well, I got to be honest. It was actually an honor to have you guys come here. I really like you guys. I love the Diablo franchise since I was a kid. This actually meant a lot to me. I have a million more questions, but I know we're out of time. Want to be respectful of that. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming here and speaking so open and honestly. I'm a loser. I'm always here. If you guys want to go again, I mean, you guys got three free hours. I got a lot more questions, but I guess. Is DM going next, or I can just pass along a million more? I'm sure they already have
believe
questions.
so. Yeah, I'm on with him tomorrow.
Yeah, DM Gaz, right?
Yeah.
All right.
It's been a blast. It's been super fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Rex. Really appreciate it. I will say we're trying to get in front of the community a little bit more and talk about these things. It's something that I really like doing and I'm pretty passionate about, and I'm looking forward to doing more. So
thank you guys for being here.
Talk to us.
Hell yeah, let's do it again. Thank you guys. Everybody in chat, say goodbye to the lovely people at Blizzard, and I guess we'll see you in season 4.
Thank you
see
all.
you, folks.
Thanks, guys. All right, coming back. Okay, how do I like this? Boom. All right, I'm back. Dude, I can't even explain to you how many questions I had to skip, man. Yo, dude, I had so many more questions. Like, oh man, dude. Look at all the questions I missed. First of all, I missed all of these, almost all of these. And I missed loot filter, SSF, PvP, offline mode, ladders, how did the PTR go, map overlay. We kind of talked about this. Charms, Uber Tomb Lord, the cow level. Why isn't Diablo and Diablo 4? What are the toughest challenges of your job? How did the Microsoft takeover impact you guys? What are the scope of your seasons and the mid-season events? Can you make community goals and events? Why are world bosses loot pinatas? What about pets and followers? Who is the target audience for Diablo 4? I wanted to talk to them about, I don't know, man. I was pretty disheartened, man. I had so many more questions. Ugh. I had so many more questions, man. I feel like I spent too much time talking. Like I spent too much time maybe phrasing the question, maybe. Then I could have gotten a couple more in. And I purposely didn't like, I wanted to have a conversation with them about every topic, but if I have a conversation with them about every topic, I only get to ask 2 questions, you know? Man, dude, I wanted to ask them so many more questions. Wah. I super over prepared for that, I guess. Well, did you guys enjoy the conversation? I'll tell you the most shocking thing to me. I literally said it in the interview. They block out time for the developers to play the game because they said the only way you're ever going to know anything is by playing the game. I thought that was pretty good, man. What's the Cliff Note version? Well, okay, so oh shit, I closed it. 1 second. A TLDR version. Okay, so as the TLDR of Pinnacle content and will skill ever play a factor is, I think the way I would summarize their answer is yes, there will, but they're still trying to find out what the right level is. Roadmap, they said, has a lot of pros and cons. The pros have to outweigh the cons, but they feel committed to giving the community promises that they keep. When I asked them, how do you by the way, there's so many people subbing and doing super chats, and somebody gifted 50 subs. Mr. G Point gifted 50 subs. Thank you. And so many people are subbing and stuff. I don't know how this happened, but I actually closed the notifications somehow. That was an accident. Let me reopen this. Thank you guys. Sorry, I was just 1,000% focused on trying to suck blood from a mummy, trying to get everything I could out of that. There's a million people that subbed with Prime and 56-month resub from Maxim. That's crazy. So there's so many of them. Thank you guys. Make sure I didn't miss anything crazy. Thank you guys. Sucking blood from a mummy. Never heard of that? Like a mosquito sucking blood from a mummy? Extracting water from a stone, same analogy. You sure sucked them hard, Rax. Thanks, man. I sure sucked them, all right. I almost threw this question out. I actually thought this was the best question I asked them. Because they did say, we read the Reddit threads. We watch the streams. We watch the YouTube videos. We read the comment sections. We go to the forums. And they said, we play the game. That's the only way you will ever really know, to play the damn game. I thought that was the best part. On Nightmare Dungeons, I essentially just cried and asked them, stop making me free 7 prisoners and reduce the time further and let me carry multiple objects. And I think the answer was maybe. Overworld's future, this is maybe the answer that kind of surprised me a little bit. I was kind of, what they said made perfect sense. They said, the overworld is super fun, kind of the first time through. Afterward, you can't really recreate the magic. We need to just get you to the events that you want to do. Like, I can't argue with that logic. That makes sense. But I did kind of expect them to... I guess I expected Diablo 4 to double down on the overworld's future kind of more than what I heard. I was actually kind of, this is probably the most surprising answer to me, that the overworld in general is not totally a one and done, but that's what I got out of their answer. You think you want it, but you don't? Well, I just got done playing 130 hours of Elden Ring, and all I did was roam around in the overworld, and all I ever think about in my life is when am I going to play Elden Ring again, and when am I going to do New Game Plus and 30 more playthroughs of it. I understand it's a different kind of game. This is an ARPG. You don't have to tell me I played a trillion different games, but my point is World of Warcraft, one of my favorite things, World of Warcraft, get on the pony and ride around and go see what we can discover. And there's so many things to go do. I wouldn't say that Overworld is, I think I want it, but I don't. In fact, I think one of the most fun game modes in the game is in the Overworld, Helltide. I think Helltide is more fun than Nightmare Dungeons. It might be more fun than the Pit, but probably not. The Pit is probably more fun currently, but it's way more fun than World Bosses, and it's way more fun than Challenge Rifts. So, I don't know. I don't think they should abandon the Overworld. That is not how I feel about it. These were Rob's questions. I wanted to ask them. They actually said this in CJ's interview. They said this, that the Diablo 3 had some cool things that they could borrow from and some things that they didn't like. So they actually kind of pseudo admitted that it is kind of like Diablo 3. But I wanted to ask them, where do they often take inspiration from the past games? And they said yesterday on CJ's stream that there will be new things that are, and this is a quote, distinctly Diablo 4, fresh and exciting. I wanted to ask them about this. I wanted to ask them, are you actually innovating on ARPGs? Distinctly Diablo 4, fresh and exciting. Are you actually planning to release new things that really the ARPG world has not seen? Because that would be exciting. I wanted to talk to them about set items. They talked about it yesterday on CJ's stream. I had more questions, man. I wanted to talk to them about rune words. They said that they like rune words. They were working on it and they're going to come in Diablo 4, but I still have questions. I wanted to talk about charms. I asked all the questions from YouTube. I forgot to say their names. I should have said their name. I forgot. God, I'm stupid. I should have said their names. The interview is over, yeah. Saying names adds time. And then I was out of time. And then I said, well, probably the next best thing I could ask is about social features. It didn't sound like they have anything coming for trading anytime soon. It sounded like they actually, I was surprised. They actually sounded like they had something for clans coming. And they didn't sound like they had anything for trading. What did they say about Group Finder? What did I think about the interview? Well, I liked Callie literally just walked up to me and farted. Thanks for that, Callie. Thank you. Did you see Callie trying to crawl on me the whole interview? No, it's not even a drive-by. She runs up, farts, then she sits there and wags her tail. She doesn't go anywhere. Nothing to announce, but it's being discussed. what is my overall opinion about their answers in the interview? It's hard to judge because it's hard to judge like being in the moment. I'd probably have to go back and rewatch it to get the full, to absorb the full amount of information, but it felt like they were being very honest. I don't know. I thought that they were giving good answers to the questions that I asked. What Adam Jackson said at the end was exactly how I feel, where he said, it's not really that valuable for you to ask me like a yes or no question, and I give you the answer and you post it somewhere and no one ever knows the why behind anything. So what would be much more helpful is having in-depth conversations about opportunity costs. I'm glad that I studied economics in college because they were actually talking about a lot of economic principles. He's like, do you know what an opportunity cost is? Yes. I love economics. I love math. So that helped. The one-time college actually pays off. They were talking about their problems, but that's exactly their problems by transitivity become our problems. If Blizzard has a problem, it's going to become our problem. If Blizzard has a problem implementing something, it will become our problem as players. Someone has a super chat here. Never call yourself a loser, Ryan. You are awesome. Thanks for saying that, man. I mean, I am a loser. I just sit around and play games all day, but I appreciate the sentiment. What did I major in college? Math. I almost got a triple major. I almost triple majored in math, stats, and economics. I also went pretty far into psychology as well. I like school. I always, my corporate job for 10 years always gave tuition reimbursement, so I always went to school. So I got my bachelor's in math, and then I put a huge emphasis on stats, economics, and psychology. I got my first master's in P&C insurance, the CPCU, and then I actually went for a second master's. I'm about a third of the way done with it with an MBA. I just like school. A lot of people hate school. I loved it. I like to go and learn. Not from MIT, from the University of Nebraska. You got a triple major, math, computer science, and drugs. Well, one of them will make you way more money than the other. Just watch Breaking Bad. I'm a Cornhusker. Yeah, we used to have the best football team ever in the history of football, and now we have the worst team ever, and we're garbage. We don't talk about the current day. Didn't we get the number one pick though? We got like the top court. We have like the godliest quarterback ever, and we have the rest of our team sucks. You graduated with your cybersecurity degree this December? Hell yeah. I didn't go to high school. I went to school high. Yeah, we have Riola. So we have Nebraska has Rax. That's a Y equals MX plus B. Good old algebra. Yeah, did you hear what they said? You should hear how most players built, you should see the data on how most players built a skill tree. I was like, what's the dumbest thing that they could do? What did they do? Put 5 points in every generator? And Joe was like, yes. I was like, Jesus Christ, guys. Maxroll.gg. What is wrong with you guys? So yeah, if you guys like college football, the Nebraska Cornhuskers are going to be super interesting to watch next year because we have the greatest quarterback ever, and the rest of our team is absolute YMCA rejects. So how far can one god quarterback take a team of losers? It's going to be like Space Jam. It's going to be like Space Jam, but for football. I'm sorry to say, Rax, but ever since you stopped making barb guides, you stopped following Maxroll. If I don't write the guide, you don't want to read it. Well, I can tell you, the people that write the barb guides over there, like Snail and is it Sloth Master and Snail? Dude, they put a lot of effort into those guides, man. They put a lot of effort into those guides. Snail is a many time rank 1 Diablo 3 player on almost every single class. He's one of the greatest players ever. You can read a guide from Snail and feel good about it, man. He's one of the greatest Diablo players of all time. It doesn't have to be me. Who writes the sorcerer builds? You ever heard of a guy named Northwar? Northwar. Everybody follows Northwar's builds. He is nobody does more math in Diablo 4 than Northwar. Nobody. He is the best sorcerer guide writer in the world by a huge margin. It's not even close at all. There's no way. It's not even close. Rob's a math guy too. Rob's a math guy. Guys, remember, Rob was on Maxroll for 3 years. Rob's a math guy too. What changes are coming? I didn't catch the stream. It wasn't really an interview about changes, really. It's not like a spoiler thing where they can like announce a bunch of new things on the stream. It's kind of understanding how are they going to make the game. So kind of the high level takeaways are challenging content will be in the game, but it's never going to be all skill based again, I don't think. Mechanical mastery is out, and your gear is going to be a huge portion of you winning. Is what I took from that. They're really unsure about roadmaps, but they have no problem making certain promises and keeping them. Kind of sounded like a no to me from the roadmaps. That's how I interpreted the answer. They said that they block out time for the team to play the game. So he said, like, for example, he's going to have about 50 hours in season 5. He said that that's by far the best way for the team to learn the game. I don't think there's any other way you could there's no other way to approach the question. The only way you will learn is by playing the game. You will never learn by sitting in an ivory tower theorizing about the game. So this was very refreshing to hear. This was just me essentially just complaining, and I want more qualitative stuff. And they said kind of like, maybe. This was just me bitching about everything. The Overworld's future was surprising to me. This is the most surprising answer. They essentially said the Overworld's really fun to explore the first time or two, and then people want to get to their events. I mean, that's probably true. But I mean, we have a big Overworld here. There's got to be something we can do with it, right? You're coping. They said no to Insta interactions. Well, I don't know if they said no. They said that they thought that they could bring it down further. Pretty sure they said that, right? That they'd look into bringing it down further. Well, no, guys. It's not that the overworld is not going to expand, right? I mean, it's very logical that with the expansion, there will be new zones and things to ride around in. It's not that the overworld is never going to get bigger. What I was asking them is the overworld going to be a defining feature of the future of the game? Are we going to be spending a lot of time in the overworld for future activities? And what they said is the overworld is kind of a 1 or 2 time thing where it's interesting, and then people want to get to where they want to go. So certainly the overworld will be expanded upon, but that's not the same as, is it a defining feature? Okay, let's do some poll. That's a good idea. Let's do some polls about how you guys felt. Who cares what I think? Let's see what you guys think. How did you feel about the interview? Everything about it. How it was done, the questions and the answers. Just everything as a whole. You thought it was godly, you thought it was great, you thought it was meh, you thought it was terrible, you thought it was horrendous. Create the poll. Let's paste the poll if you want to vote. There it is. I pasted it 1,000,000 times. Results. Let's see. How did you guys feel about it? The whole entirety of it. How it was, everything about it. Me, all Blizzard, everything lumped into one. All right. That's pretty good. I'll take that. That's what I was going to ask from you guys. What ban the 22 people? I wouldn't give them I wouldn't ban somebody for having an opinion that didn't align with mine. If people state their opinions and they're different than mine, as long as they aren't being toxic about it, I don't have any problem with them. It's when people voice opinions to me and they're being toxic about it that I swat them away. Okay, so what feedback do you guys have about how it could have been better? I mean, it's really not up to them to do better. It's up to me to do better. So it could have been a longer interview. What can I do better? I need to ask questions quicker. Not be a simp. I was being a simp for Diablo 4. You know, I hear some content creators get called this. Some content creators get called a simp. I actually don't get that too much. I'm kind of surprised to hear that. It's usually just not feedback that I get very often. Joe needs to talk less, but here's the thing, though. It's kind of like Adam said, kind of at the end of the thing. I think it is much more helpful to have insights and deep dives into conversations than to do the rapid fire. I could have asked 50 questions if I would have done it. Will there be charms in Diablo 4? Will there be set items in Diablo 4? But Last Epoch has set items, and they're terrible. Diablo 3's entire game is based on overpowered sets, and it pretty much ruined the game. Diablo 2 has some godly sets, and some of them are completely useless, even after the repass of what they did of them. So when you tell me if they would say yes, sets are coming into the game, that doesn't tell me anything. What I want to know is, what do you think about sets? Let's have a conversation about what works about sets and what doesn't. That's the important thing to me. So when you say Joe talks too much, I would not coach him to talk less because I want to have conversations about it. One hour is too short of a time to ask detailed questions. Most of the segment should be rapid fire. Otherwise, you don't cover anything. If you had 2 or 3 hours, it would have been a different story. Barely any questions were covered. Yeah, I think that's the main point of feedback is more time. Well, some of the questions that I started off with, which I thought were the most important, they already discussed it yesterday, and I cannot assume that people watched Riker's interview like I did. So I wanted to start off with, here's what you guys said already. Okay, here's what you said yesterday. Now here's my question. Here's the part that I'm missing here. Yeah, I mean, again, if I could have had a conversation about things when Adam Jackson was talking about balancing the campaign, I mean, I have a pretty simple solution, which I think is, I mean, again, opportunity cost. How long does it take them to do it versus what's the benefit added? I can go through Helltide and play for whatever 5 hours, and I'm level 65 and I have a full set of basic ancestral gear and I have 2 or 3 legendaries that are good for me. That's where I get in 5 hours or something. And then I go play the campaign, and the campaign takes me 5 hours, and when I'm done with it, I'm level 43 and I have mostly yellows and 2 legendaries. And then I say, okay, if you redesign the campaign completely with all the new smart loot and this or that, then it's a huge undertaking, right? So what about this? Leave the campaign as it is. Forget it. Just leave it as it is. And the only thing that you do is cut out some of the ridiculous parts, like maybe walking around the snake 300 times, or the camel escort quest where you're sitting there for 20 minutes, the slowest camel ever following it. And then you say, all right, the time now is 4 hours or something, or whatever it is. And then you benchmark that compared to about where would you be gear wise and XP wise at the end of the run. You could do it very cheaply, actually. You could just play the campaign, you kill Lilith at whatever, level 42. And once you kill Lilith, you go to level 60 in world tier 4, you just ding 60. Boom, you're 60. You're in world tier 4 and you get a little good Lilith drops Lilith's goodie bag, and she drops you a decent set of eye level whatever 800 ancestral gear. Put it on, it's about the same. That requires almost no changes in the campaign. Nothing. You didn't change anything. And when you kill Lilith, you just ding roughly the level and roughly the gear that you would have had if you would have played in Helltide. That sounds lame, though, but that sounds lame to you. People love the campaign. The whole point is to give another choice. People who say that's lame, that's you. I would personally love that. See? Some people in Diablo 4 would rather do the campaign again and arrive at the same spot than run 15 Helltides. You want to know what? Let's not leave it up to interpretation. No guessing. And let's just ask the question. Assuming reasonable campaign changes, meaning you don't have to wait for the camel for an hour, which is more fun to level if you arrived at the same point for the same amount of time? I'm not expecting this poll to be lopsided. I'm expecting it to be a balance. Helltide blasting or the campaign? Let's see if I'm wrong. Let's just see what happens. What would be more fun for you? I spammed it. What would you rather do if you arrived at the same point and they made some basic quality of life changes to the campaign? Okay, I didn't actually expect the campaign to win, but this is what I expected it to not have a landslide victory for either of them. So what someone says is stupid to you is way more fun for 420 people, KEKW. Guys, another thing is this, if they took this development time, other than the opportunity cost of development time on some other feature, this situation is just a win for everybody. Even if you're just Helltide blasting, it does not hurt you for the campaign to be an equally viable option for the people that want to play this game. What's the problem? And guys, some people say, Rax, your solution is really lame. You just beat the campaign, you ding 60 and you get a goodie bag. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty lame. That's not as good as them redefining the whole campaign and putting in special loot drops to align and making it perfect. But the entire point of why you wouldn't get this change is the dev time opportunity cost, right? It takes 1,000,000 years to fix that. Whereas if they just did a goodie bag and made you ding a certain level, then they could implement it maybe in a day. and then they can fix it later. Right now, you're not going to get. Right now, if you do the campaign, you don't get anything. You don't get jack shit. You don't get any XP, and you don't get anything. It's a huge, huge, not even close to Helltide. Stop wasting time on meaningless garbage. Jesus, the game has much bigger problems than this. Some of you guys. Some of you guys. I know 4th grade was hard. It's hard to cover a lot of different ideas and aspects of a topic. I know that that can get really complicated for some people. I can see the smoke coming out of some of their ears from all the way over here. That's why I'm saying fussy. That's why I included this portion to expedite the campaign on a replay a little bit. We don't have to walk the camel again. Wait, there's a 4th grade after 5th grade? 4th grade is coming, man. And for some of the people in chat, it's where their journey ended. I like the camel. Don't take it away from us. Well, we just proved today that Satan does exist. Drag-a-shot right there liked the camel. Satan does exist, guys. They should have an Uber fight of the camel, and you have to walk him across the desert. It's kind of like a Mario Kart race, and the timing is really, really precise. You need like frame perfect inputs to get the camel to turn left and right. Yeah, and there needs to be landmines. And there needs to be landmines, and if you successfully beat it, then you unlock a key to go into the catacombs to fight Uber Tomb Lord. And Uber Tomb Lord's mount is the camel. The interview is already over. Yeah, if you blinked, it's already over. Rob just sent me a clip. I don't know what this is. Let's just click it.
So we ended up putting it in a place where like the tier 200 pit is like, okay, so like around tier 150 pit is like close to where AOZ was, you know, for like tier 25 AOZ.
Oh yes,
and tier 200 goes beyond that.
that is insane.
The scaling has been increased.
Oh my god, thank you so much, Ryan.
Gradual as you're kind of progressing through.
Yes.
Because we want you to feel that you have a place to push. It's
Oh,
not like
boy.
So, like, because AOZ was 25 tiers, extremely chunky when you went from
150
tiers,
pit is tier 25
Tiers
AOZ.
gradual as you go further. and
Let's
further.
go.
And we think that that's going to be.
We have a
good
real
for
end
players.
game.
Because it's ultimately a lot of the materials you really want from the pit, you can gain by the time you're like doing like tier.
Suck 'em
60,
harder,
so you can, like,
Rax.
Finally,
little
guys.
bits of the Neath Iron that you need to kind of start finishing off your masterwork items, and then that gets more and more efficient as you go deeper and deeper. You know, but we do want to have these like really, really difficult. So we ended up putting it in a place where like the tier 200 pit.
If the barb is happy, then we're happy. We got a message from Adam Fletcher. I know that you had a ton of additional stuff. Maybe we can do this again sooner rather than later, and we can hit up even more of your questions. All right. I mean, I got questions. I can come up with another 100 questions. Adam to save the day. Rob probably loves the camel. He better not. He better not. Okay. Should I call Adam and Joe? Be like, are you guys free later? Let's go. Let's go again. Part 2. Okay, I didn't know this. It's Rob's birthday today. 5/9, huh? It's his birthday? $31? That's 1 foot in the grave. Should I just, when DM's interview starts, should I call them and be like, what? No, you guys got your schedules confused. This interview was my interview part 2. DM's is later. They'll be like, oh, okay. And then DM's going to be like, what the hell? No, I'm just kidding. I'll just send DM my questions. He'll do a good job. Excuse, I'm 34. How are you even alive? I'm 37, by the way. There's DM right there. Please, no. DM, I'm sure you have a list of questions. Would you like another list of questions that I didn't get to add to your list? Dude, 45 minutes, man, is not enough time. Send them your way. You'll carry the torch. All right. I'm going to fix this document. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. I already asked this. Well, let me do it this way. I already asked about aspirational content. I already asked them about the roadmap. I already asked them about feedback. I already asked them about the state of Nightmare Dungeons. I already asked them about the Overworld future. I asked them about the pit. I didn't ask them this. So these are all done. I already asked those. This was kind of asked already. I wanted to prod at them deeper, but I'm just going to delete this question. I'm not sure if DM was aware of this. Maybe this question doesn't make any sense anymore. I'm just going to delete it. Charms. This is a good one. So that's a good one to ask. All right. So I already asked. I asked all of these. So this is all, I already asked this. I already asked this. Didn't ask that. I would I want to know this. I want to know what their target audience is for Diablo 4. This is already listed above. Okay, Yeah, here you go. Anything in orange, I already asked. CJ had some extra questions as well. Okay, so let me share this with DM here. All right. There you go, man. He has it. There you go. Yeah, that's another question I should have asked. Why is everything red? I asked about the armory, and they gave me like a little smile, and they said, we like the idea of the armory, and we know people want it. That's usually their cutie patootie way of saying that it's probably maybe coming soon, like maybe season 5. How am I feeling about the pit difficulty? Yeah, like I said live on the interview, if tier 25 is 150 and 200 is beyond, Abattoir tier 25 with the bug fixes and with the balance changes, that should be, in theory, extremely difficult. When will Northwar release his guides? I know he has a lot of guides to work on. I don't know the exact timing, but I do know that... Don't know the exact timing, but I do know that the Maxroll people have been blasting. So obviously before the season comes out on Tuesday, the Maxroll team has been blasting to get the D4 guides out. Please tell me I will not be playing hardcore in Diablo 4. I'm 1000% going hardcore SSF, and it is very, very likely that I will die. Very likely. I did a couple of practice runs on the PTR with the no cheat death changes. I did not survive a single run. I died on every single time. And I know Diablo 4 pretty well. You want to know another cute thing about me playing hardcore next season? I have never fought an Uber boss. I've never fought Uber Andariel. I've never fought Uber, I don't even know their names, Lightning Man. I never fought Uber Zier. I've never fought them. Not even one time to test them. No, I fought. Is there a 200 version of Duriel as well? Okay. I will almost certainly die. I didn't survive one speed run in the PTR. I died on every single one. I'm probably going to play. Well, first of all, I'll play every class because, again, I mean, I've said this like 5 times today, but I'm a loser, so I'll play everything except maybe Rogue, but maybe I'll play Rogue too. I'm probably going to start Necro. I haven't started Necro. I don't know if I've ever started Necro. And I really want to play with the minions. I think the minions are going to be fun as hell. Why not Rogue? Because Rogue didn't get many like exciting changes. I tried several speed leveling things, and I died on every single one of them. I hate minions. It's not that I hate minions. It's I hate minions where I'm a babysitter and not the commander of the undead. If my minions are dumb as hell and I have to do a ton of things to make them do anything, then yes, I hate minions. What time is DM's interview? I don't know. He tweeted it, didn't he? I'm such a Twitter noob. I don't even know how to look people up here. Search Darth Micro here. 1 p.m. Pacific. 1 p.m. Pacific. So exactly 24 hours from now, I believe. Am I hyped for May 14th? I am. It's going to be fun. I'm almost certainly going to die, but I don't care. I'll just make another character. We go again. You watched the interview already a second time, and I was too hard for myself. My phrasing was well done. Thanks for saying that, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I just didn't. Time was the limiting factor there. Is there any need to keep aspects on old characters to migrate them over to the new system in Season 4? Keep in mind, the new system is very seamless, right? You run around, you pick up legendaries, okay, you take a look. If it's not better than yours, essentially, if it doesn't have a greater ethics, you just salvage it. It's just going to start chain upgrading your Codex of Power seamlessly. I don't think you need to save stuff and salvage it and anything like that. I think you just play, and your Codex is going to get filled out pretty easily. Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. One of the biggest values there is the humanizing of the Blizzard entity or the Diablo 4 entity. You get to speak to the people in plain English. The real advantage here, the difference between this and a campfire chat for me is they're willing to just sit there and say, what does the community want to talk about? And I try to make my questions a little bit pointed. If I leave the question super open-ended, then we can get a very, very high level glazing of ideas. But if I say, I want to talk to you about Pinnacle content. You said this didn't work. You said this is going to be a bigger factor than X is going to be a bigger factor than Y. Have you considered Z specifically for this content? And what does the team think about that? Then we can start to dig at what are we actually getting at here. Right. When you leave it very open, it's not even like a negative, but when you leave a topic wide open, they will respond similarly to how they have always responded, right? If I say, what did you guys think about the PTR? They have already said 100 times, we really liked the PTR. We got so much feedback. Thank you for participating on the PTR. Okay, but I could ask them, What kind of feedback from the PTR seemed to be the most valuable to you? What kinds of things surprised you when you started to concatenate the data and start to make some decisions about it? That's better. Like, we're actually going to learn something out of it. Rax plays softcore, so you can do community, Duriel, and Andariel runs. The problem is if I do that, whenever I have ever done a community run, I have always required myself to pay my own way, unless someone comes into my stream and says, Rax, I'm literally quitting. I'm going to go play WoW Season of Discovery. If you want my 50 mats, you can take them. If not, they're going to rot in my chest. Okay. If you're actually quitting, whatever, I'll take them. But in general, if I just log in, what you guys will do, because you guys are so nice, is you guys will pay for me to run Duriel 10,000 times until I have every Uber unique, because you're very nice. But if I do that, I am missing the most important thing about my stream and as a player. I miss being relatable. If I just use streamer privilege to just get handed everything, first of all, the game is boring because I didn't earn anything. And the second thing is I'm not relatable. You guys don't have, a lot of you don't have 1,000 million people that are willing to just hand you everything. So when you're trying content and you have a stick and I have Excalibur, it's not relatable. So that's why I don't do that. Or if I participate in community events, I pay my own way every time. Am I not trying to be Rob? Guys, I'm not needling Rob, or people are saying Asmongold. I'm not giving this answer to disrespect other people or their decisions. I was asked a question. I'm responding to the answer for me. They can do whatever they want. Interview already happened. Here's an interesting thing. Lee just made this. This is going to be the timestamps of the interview on YouTube. Let's look, but this is interesting because let's look at the time spent on each topic. I mean, the problem is this question had a lot of setup. I spent at least 1 minute setting up the question from CJ's interview. So let's say about four minutes on roadmap, about 4 minutes on Pinnacle content, 4 minutes on roadmap, 11 minutes on feedback from the community. Wow. 11 minutes? We spent 1/4 of the time talking about how they process feedback and how they test the game. Armory, 42 seconds. This was the rapid fire thing, though. You got to talk faster, Rax. Speed run questions. I mean, I was trying, man. I was trying. I wasn't yapping fast enough. What stood out the most? Probably the feedback section. The fact that they said that they build in time for all the developers to play the game, to learn the game. I would say that was the best news for me out of all that. But I think that let's do one more poll. I don't want to become a poll, Andy. But I do have a question. For those that watch the interview, let's see. What was the best information about or from the interview? The devs play the game every day. What are some other choices? The pit actually having difficulty, yeah. Pit actually difficult. Yeah. The overworld being dead. Yeah, it sounded like an armory is coming. Armory coming, we think. Kind of. Paper towels next to the bed. Yeah, they actually feedback listened to from all sources. I mean, that's good enough. We don't have to fish for these. Let's just go with this. Which of these four would you say was the best news that out of these four choices? Spam the poll in the chat if you care to answer. All right, so people are, what I'm gathering from this is people are excited about different things. It's a little bit more balanced than I thought it was going to be. VPN user voting is not allowed. I wonder why that is. Is that because they don't want you to vote a million times? Because you can just keep picking different sources or what? Why would they block that? It's like to protect the integrity of the poll or something? Devs play the game every day is not a best info. That is their obligation. I don't know if every gaming studio blocks out a certain portion of their day every day to just play the game. I wouldn't say that's, I'd say an obligation is a stretch, but I'm glad that they do it. Obligation is a stretch. Well, Jesse, did the people actually think that the devs don't play the game? I don't think I think most people thought that the devs play the game, but there's a huge difference between playing the game and your entire dev team as part of their daily job plays 50 hours of the new season each before releasing it to the public. I think those are not the same thing. I was not expecting that. What is SSF? Solo self-found, you mean? All right. There's so many people here. I would love to just blast all day, but I actually think I'm gonna relax a little bit. I was gonna keep. I could stream all day, guys, but I think I'm gonna wrap it up here, and I'm gonna raid Rob because it's his birthday. So let's raid Rob and wish him happy birthday and see what he thinks. Really appreciated you guys being here. You guys left a lot of comments. I took the top 5 comments on YouTube, and I blocked out time to ask your questions. So the probably the most insulting thing, the thing that pisses me off, that people talk shit about me all the time, and that's fine. You're a streamer, that's what's going to happen. The one thing that pisses me off the most is when people say that I don't care about the community, I don't represent the community in any way, I don't give a shit about the casuals, I only care about the blasters. It's complete horseshit. That's why I let you guys post all of your questions, and when I'm running out of time, I asked every single one of your top 5 questions. I didn't do it as a PR move. I did it to make sure that your questions got answered. So that's the thing that, if you really want to piss me off, is saying something like that to me. One guy, no, it happens a lot, my friend. Trust me. You wouldn't believe how much people talk shit about me. But we're not going to focus on that. Today was a great day. But remember this, for all the people that say I don't care, I asked the top 5 questions from YouTube, and I didn't have an opportunity to ask many questions. Is Rob still streaming? Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Tomorrow, I'll probably play Diablo 4. I haven't played in a long time. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The 5-year-old in me just wants to keep playing Elden Ring, but I'll probably play Diablo 4. Might theory craft some things. Might look at some Maxroll builds. I need to make a tier list. It's just so hard to say, man. It's so hard to say. The tier list, I'm going to make it just because people like the video, but it's so hard to say. I'll see you tomorrow, Frosty. Frosty, hopefully you got some ultimate meme content from that. You already know Frosty's brewing something. Thanks for being here, guys. By the way, there were 1 million super chat subs. Flip said, hey, I am watching your Elden Ring playthrough. You can only play the game once for the first time. Thanks to the creators, I can watch someone else experiencing it for the first time. Thank you for uploading it to YouTube, and bless you. Thank you, man. Flip, I hope you're here. If you're not here, I'm going to private message you just to make sure. Sorry I didn't see that until now. Everybody on YouTube, thanks for all the subs. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for everything. Sorry, I was super tunnel visioned on the stream today. I wasn't even looking at the notifications today. I'll do better. I got to the end of the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then I just stopped playing it. I'm literally at the point where the bad thing happens, and I'm at the point where the bad thing happens, and I just stopped playing. I'm just like, I don't know. It's just not the same as Final Fantasy VII, man. Have a great night, guys. See you tomorrow. Let's see what Rob has to say here.